Good morning, everybody. Good morning. It's June 11th, 2026. Thank you, Drew. Good morning. It's June 11th, 2026. So I'm going to call the business meeting of the Governing Board of the South Florida Water Management District to order. First on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm going to ask Mr. Butler to lead the pledge, and if you'd stand and face the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, everyone. It's nice to see y'all. Mr. Steinley and Vice Chair Wagner are not going to be able to join us today. Mr. Hurley and Mr. Martinez are online. Mr. Spotswood's going to be joining us in a little bit. Mr. Hurley, are you on?
I am.
Great. Good morning. Mr. Martinez?
I'm here, Mr. Chair.
Good morning.
Good morning.
For board members who are here, I'm going to ask you make sure your microphone is on and you speak into the mic so online attendees can hear you. For board members who are on Zoom, I can't see you when you raise your hand, so if you want to speak out and ask questions, please just call out your name and I'll acknowledge you to speak. Members of the public on Zoom who wish to speak to the board may use the raise your hand feature. If members of the public are having any trouble and need help, please go to our website, sfwmd.gov, and click the Ask Us button at the top of the page, and staff will help you out. If you're using a phone and you'd like to comment, press star 9 to raise your hand, and then star 6 to mute and unmute. It's a courtesy to others who wish to speak. Members of the public are asked to comment only once on a topic. We'll take public comment first from those who are here in person and submitted a comment card, followed by those with raised hands on Zoom. Switching gears, this time of year usually marks the start of wet season, and it has in some places. So this is a good time to remember that the ability to live, work, and raise families in South Florida depends on the district water management system and the commendable work of our water managers and those in the field who operate and maintain our flood control system. I'd say more than commendable, but totally necessary, and we're forever in your debt because you're keeping us dry, so thank you for that. Since 2012, the governing board and our senior management team have recognized June as Flood Awareness Month. Drew, I understand you're going to speak more about that during your executive director's report, and we're going to move now to employee recognitions, if you join me in the well.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. All right. Our June 2026 Employee of the Month is Harrison Alexander, Principal IT Administrator, Information Technology. Now, Mr. Chair, a little more than a year ago, the district started our district efficiency team, and we asked Rich Sands in the district to help us facilitate that conversation. And very quickly, Rich Sands pulled in Harrison Alexander, and he has been doing an amazing job with our efficiency efforts here at the Water Management District. Why? Because he is a master with artificial intelligence. So we have taken, there he is. You don't have, yeah. I'm going to talk about you for a little bit. So basically, our agency is growing, right? And our workforce, we are not growing our workforce, but we have a lot more duties to take care of. And so what we do is we look at ways to do those duties more efficiently. And that's where Harrison stepped in. And he has been knocking it out of the park month after month, week after week, night after night, getting our efficiencies efforts going forward. And it all started with our credit card processing. So we have a number of employees with credit cards. They take care of our mission, get supplies, do what they need to do. And that whole process has been very manually driven from the get-go, where they get their receipts, they put them on different forms, whether it's a PDF, they scan them in, whatever, or they get them electronically, send them in to finance, then they reconcile it with bank statements manually. Well, Harrison said, you know what? Computers can do this. And so he got artificial intelligence to basically take all these different forms of information, read them, and then reconcile them with the bank statements, and then produce a report on where it doesn't reconcile. And then so the people in finance don't have to do it manually. They can just look at those reports. And then he doubled down and said, you know what? AI can look for the errors also. And so they look for the errors, condense them down. It's just an amazing process that used to be done manually at a computer by people. Now it's done by AI. And by the way, it used to just do a sample size of reconciliation, a sample size of auditing. We can 100% audit all these transactions now. And it's done in a matter of minutes versus hours, and Harrison built that. But wait, there's more. So HR looked over the wall and said, wait a minute, we got some processes that we could use some help with. An employee recognition process that was done through email with a person tracking it, checking budget, checking these kind of things on employee recognition, now fully automated in a web-based system using AI. Now you have all the data in a central database. You can look at trends, you can look at whatever you need, build dashboards, look at employees that are getting recognized. And then HR said, wait, I got this over here. And onboarding, we had this spreadsheet that was built a while ago. It used to work well. It does not work well. Every hiring manager that you see here hates that spreadsheet on how you compile questions, you can compile panel answers, all these types of things. Now it's all in a AI system. AI is taking all that. He basically used AI to program a web-based system to basically get employee questions, employee compilations, all these type of things to make hiring that much easier. But wait, there's more. Procurement said, wait, we got some stuff over here. So we evaluate every contract we do, construction, consulting, whatever contract we evaluate. Used to be on a form, put into a PDF, stored on some sort of system, web-based, all-in-one dashboard system now. I could just go on. So every efficiency team meeting I have, here comes a new set of people from the administrative side of things, telling what Harrison did to them between meetings. I meet monthly, right? So this guy works like mad, and he is just transforming this district. And so I was training modules. We used to pay a company, tens, maybe hundreds of thousands to put training modules together. He's got a system where AI can put that together. Rich Sands, who trains us on how to use SAP, here's my slideshow I use, and it put together a video. Boom. Right? So Rich Sands doesn't have to spend a day doing that anymore. Right? So it's an amazing effort. Harrison does it. He knocks it out of the park. And that's why he's our employee of the month. I can't say anymore. All right, we have our June 2026 Team of the Month, which is our C23 Estuary Discharge Diversion Team, consisting of Matt Alexander, Kenneth Bianco, Bruce Chesser, Frank Coker, Gina Colagiacomo, Kevin Cope, Dora Dixon, Irina Durant, Joe Fiala, Jennifer Gent, Marisha Hodap, Jack Ismalan, Holly Jarvinen, Jason Lutz, Nigel Mann, Andrea Martinez Posada, Asif Mohammed, Patrick Murphy, that's a tricky one, Stephen Nguyen, Benny Ortiz, Les Richards, David Rowe, Bob Schaefer, Chris Tomlin, and Mark Wilsnack. So everyone knows that SERP projects are tough to pull off, and it takes a team like this to make that happen. And while this one sounds like it could be easy, there's a pump station and a canal, it was not, because this pump station had to be engineered and designed to be operated without people, which it was done. And then you had to build this canal halfway across Martin County to connect the C-23 canal all the way to the C-44 reservoir going through private property, you know? And so there's the private property owners, not only before construction, but during construction. There's a lot of work with those. And then we had to go across two major roads. So you had to get that canal going under those major roads. And so it was not only a real estate challenge, it was a design challenge and during construction challenge. So it takes all these people to do these types of things. But let me brag about this project. While it doesn't sound, it's not a reservoir or anything like that, it absolutely prevents harmful discharges into the St. Lucie estuary. You got the C-23 canal that goes straight into the estuary. We've seen what we can do with the C-44 canal, and last wet season, not a drop went into the estuary because it went into the reservoir. This canal will be coupled with a future reservoir to pull water off. So we're already using it to manage water levels in the C-23 to try to prevent discharges into the St. Lucie estuary. And so that's a big thing. And 250 CFS, which is the pump station, is real water when it comes to water supply, because this, instead of going into the estuary and being lost harmfully, it's being put into a reservoir which can be used during the dry season. So it's a great project, and it takes this kind of team to pull it off, because otherwise it wouldn't happen. It would just be stymied by, you name it, real estate, permitting, anything, it would be stymied. So these people came together and made it happen. Now we can better protect the St. Lucie estuary. Thank you, team.
Congratulations. Thank you for all your hard work. You're welcome.
All right, Mr. Chair, we have a 25-year service award. That is Juan Gonzalez Castro, Chief Engineer, Hydrology and Hydraulics Bureau. All right. That's a good picture. No, you stay there. That's a good picture. Yeah, I like that. All right, so Juan came to us in 2001 as a senior engineer, and he had just finished his postdoc. Yes, Dr. Juan Castro in hydroacoustics. And so he got his master's degree from the National Autonomous University in Mexico and his doctorate at the University of Illinois. And he came to us, and he's gotten his professional engineer license in Florida. So he comes very qualified work here at the Water Management District. And he does hydroacoustics, right? So this may be a surprise to folks, but we think water management and flow measurement is very important to us. It is all over our website. We use it daily, if not hourly or every minute. And this is where Juan comes in and helps us with our flow measurements all across our thousands and thousands of field measurements out there. And so he played a key role in the selection and testing of the various acoustic devices we have to measure flow. Our acoustic Doppler current profilers, our index velocity meters, and our 2D/3D velocimeters in our district environment. And then he brings that expertise not only to monitoring the flow, but also to model validation, performance evaluation of our projects, and conveyance. And so he led our hydrometric services unit for many years, making sure we have all the flow where we need it, the measurements, and also in our rapid response team after big events that we had. Let's see, there's just so much to talk about here. Let me go to his recognition. So Juan is super smart. His expertise is known not only nationally, but worldwide. He is a member of the American Society for Civil Engineers, and he serves on the task committee on hydraulic measurements and experimental methods. He also serves in the World Meteorological Organization on the expert team on hydrometry. He's co-authored over 20 journal articles and over 40 national and international conference papers. He has spoken across the world on flow measurement. That's how important it is, right? I mean, everybody in this world cares about water and where it's going and what's happening with it. And they all care about it being measured properly. And so he brings that. And is this your wife here? Yes. Hey, welcome. I'm going to talk about you too. He has 3 children and 2 grandchildren, and I would be very proud of that. He's married to Dr. Rachel Core. She's a cultural anthropologist, professor at the Florida Atlantic University, so we have 2 PhDs in the same household. And while some might argue that cultural anthropology is more interesting than hydroacoustics, us at the Water Management District think those people are crazy. Cultural anthropology. All right, so this is what Juan says. I've got a job to do that is worth doing, agreed, and he enjoys doing it as a hobby. So we hope he enjoys this hobby for another 25 years here at the Water Management District, because he's doing great work for us of making us look fabulous. Thank you, Juan, for your 25 years of service.
Now that you mention it.
Oh, thanks, Drew. We're going to go now to agenda revisions. Molly, are there any changes to the agenda?
There are none, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks. And we'll move now to item abstentions by board members, and I'm going to poll the board, and I'll start with Mr. Bergeron. Do you have any abstentions?
No, sir.
I have none. Colonel?
I have none.
Mr. Butler?
I have none.
Let's see. Who's on? Mr. Hurley?
Nope.
Thank you. Mr. Martinez?
None.
Thanks. And I will ask Mr. Spotswood when he joins us. We'll move now to the approval of the minutes for the May 14th, 2026 meeting. Does anyone have any changes to those minutes? If not, is there a motion to approve them?
I'll move to approve, Mr. Chair.
Thanks. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thanks. I have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? If not, we'll call that question. Mr. Bergeron?
Yes.
I'm going to vote yes. Colonel Roman?
Yes.
Mr. Butler?
Yes.
Mr. Hurley?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Martinez?
Yes.
Thanks. That passes unanimously. And we'll move now to the Executive Director's Report. Mr. Bartlett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. All right, legislative session has concluded, and as part of that, they have formally passed the budget for fiscal year 26-27 on May 29th. And we did well with our restoration efforts. $525 million for SERP, Comprehensive Everglades Restoration. And important in that number is that it fully funds the state's portion of the EAA reservoir. And then on top of that, provides about $95 million for the SEP North, the northern part of Water Conservation Area 3A restoration, the ASR Well Development Project around Lake Okeechobee. The Blue Shanty Flowway is fully funded on the state side, and the Tamiami Trail Culverts as part of Western Everglades Restoration continues its funding. So a lot of those were funded. With respect to SERP, the kind of approach the legislature took this year was fully funding the EA reservoir and closing out contracts to kind of make room for the next leadership, whether it's the next governor, the next president, Senate, next speaker of the House, to make decisions on the direction of Comprehensive Everglades restoration and where to invest. So that will be very much a conversation this coming year with the new leadership on where to take SERP going forward on prioritization. So that's how it was left and set up, but we got the EAA reservoir funded, right? Very exciting. They also provided $80 million for Northern Everglades and estuaries protection, including dispersed water management, about $40 million for the Lower Kissimmee Basin stormwater treatment area to put clean water in Lake Okeechobee, and then they gave us $2.35 million for land management because we have a lot of that to do. So we really appreciate that, and did not get any operational dollars, so we'll be able to craft our budget going forward on that. I also wanted to identify some DEP funding that they got that intersects our mission for innovative water quality technology. They got $10 million. They got $5 million to address harmful algae blooms, $20 million for the Biscayne Bay Initiative, $50 million for alternative water supply, $25 million for Indian River Lagoon water quality projects, $20 million to support basin management action plans, and $170 million total for the resiliency programs across Florida, which of course we're very active in. So all of this was forwarded to the governor, where he will take action clearly before July 1st when the state fiscal year starts. Also in the legislative session, they did pass a bill putting a referendum on the ballot for tax relief for people that live in Florida and homestead in Florida, increasing the homestead exemption. And so we're doing projections on that. It does not affect us this coming fiscal year, so this budget will not be influenced by whatever happens in November. If it passes, then it goes to $150 million, $150,000 exemption for the following fiscal year, 28, and then another up to $250,000 exemption for 29. And so that's why projections are important. So we're currently working on those projections to see how to navigate anything that passes, if it does pass in November, and continue to execute on our very important mission. We'll keep you posted. Happy birthday to the district. It's our 77-year birthday. June 2nd marks when we began as a district. And so I just want to thank all the employees and board members before and present as we navigate and as our mission grows, as it did through to ecosystem restoration. We have been able to navigate that. Plus, we've had a lot of changes in the South Florida Water Management District during that time. 77 years is a lot of time. We went from 2 million people to 9 million people in that time frame. So we continue to execute our mission very well, and happy birthday to the district. So we've been doing a lot of activity. Lake Okeechobee is low, and so we've implemented our low Lake Okeechobee plan. I did join Commissioner Iglesias from Hendry County, where we visited a planting project outside of Clewiston in Lake Okeechobee. 50,000 plants were being planted as part of that project to help jumpstart that ecosystem. We did look at some areas where there was natural recruitment of eelgrass, incredible view of that. And so very proud to be doing that. And then on Friday, after the 16 County Coalition, we went out and visited a muck removal project, 260, 70 acres of muck removal in that, in a very marshy area. You look at it, taking muck and changing it to sand, the water will come back in, the plants will grow, it'll be an incredible environment there. So we've done that. There's been burns out on Lake Okeechobee, some really good ones, some caused by Mother Nature. We've been doing exotics removal out there while it's been low, so a lot has been happening to try to take advantage of the low lake level. So very proud of the staff mobilizing, working with FWC to make that happen. We've had a number of ribbon cuttings as well. We went to the West Coast where we put in new communication for our headquarters building to work, have excellent, reliable communication with the structures in the Big Cypress Basin and on the west coast of Florida. I think, Charlotte, you might be talking a little bit more about that. We did a ribbon cutting with Ducks Unlimited for a 340-acre restoration, the Loxahatchee watershed. That's about a 3,000 acre watershed, and this was a hole in the donut that had row crops, and now it's got wetlands again. So that's a big natural area. And then we finished the completion of repair and actually creating the Corbett Levee to help protect citizens in Palm Beach County from flooding threats from wildlife management area. And so that was a big occasion as well. So a lot's been happening. You of course heard me talk about the estuary discharge diversion as well. In the water shortage front, we did rescind our water shortage warnings for Lee and Collier counties. That's been getting a lot of rain over there. And so the wells have rebounded and there's no need for a water shortage warning anymore in that area. The only one we have left now is the modified phase 2 water shortage order in Cape Coral, 1 day a week for using private wells in the lower Hawthorne to irrigate. I told you last time we were going to put together a one-pager for our stormwater treatment areas and what's going on with them. It's a very public conversation right now on putting clean water in the Everglades, a very important mission of ours. Cassandra will continue to give you a monthly update in her presentation, including some additional education for the board and the public on how we manage them, how we comply, what the permits say, things like that. So that will continue. But we wanted to this will be posted on the web. This is a report that reflects on the performance of the SDAs from the last water year, which ended April 30th of this year. And how they performed, all the activities we implemented in those SDAs to help them perform better. But the water quality based effluent limit took effect as far as us needing to comply with those limits on May 1st. So after the first quarter of data collection, Cassandra will report monthly, but we'll put another one of these out quarterly. Not enough data is collected between to put another flyer out, so we'll do this again in August. And it will reflect the first quarter of monitoring for the current water year, which started May 1st. And it will be put on our website. So good information for the public to have as we continue to look at putting clean water in the Everglades. We did conduct our Hurricane Freddy exercise a couple of weeks ago. And that that is an exercise that we do to bring staff that may have changed roles into the emergency operations center, put in new technologies, use our systems, basically go through an exercise to make sure we're prepared for the real thing. And I can tell you the exercises are often much more stressful. This one was a double hurricane where one hit and then a week and a half later another one hit. And so it was the effects of one causing limitations on being able to deal with the effects of the second one. So it was a good exercise, and we're ready for the hurricanes should they come this year. It's Flood Awareness Month, Mr. Chairman, as you said, and so it's something we take extremely seriously here at the South Florida Water Management District. A lot of staff are mobilized to be able to make sure our flood control system operates to provide the benefits in South Florida. And so what we've done is staff has put together a video to commemorate Flood Awareness Month for us. Thank you.
Flood control is a critical component of life in Florida. If you haven't lived in Florida for long, you may not know that our climate has 2 seasons, wet and dry. Weather in South Florida has a way of ignoring the calendar and expectations of what's normal. We remind ourselves of this fact of living in the Sunshine State each June during Flood Awareness Month. The South Florida Water Management District operates and maintains the region's primary water management system. Vast in scale, the network of canals, levees, and structures was authorized by Congress more than 75 years ago to protect residents and businesses from floods and droughts. This primary system connects to community drainage districts and hundreds of smaller neighborhood systems to effectively manage floodwaters during heavy rain. To see which entity is responsible for local drainage in your community, make sure you visit sfwmd.gov/flood control and type in your address for more information. As a result of this interconnected drainage system, flood control in South Florida is a shared responsibility between the South Florida Water Management District, county and city governments, local drainage districts, homeowners associations, and residents. South Florida Water Management District staff serve our region from 8 field stations, as well as from our headquarters building in West Palm Beach. Field station staff are who you are most likely to see in your community, working every day to make sure the regional water management system operates smoothly and efficiently to provide flood control and protect regional water supplies. Throughout the year, district staff oversee more than 2,175 miles of canals, 2,130 miles of levees and berms, 936 water control structures, 620 project culverts, and 98 pump stations. While this network of canals is entirely in South Florida, spanning from Orlando to Miami, it has a total combined length comparable to the distance from Florida all the way to California. This year's dry conditions highlight another reason for continuing to develop the storage components of the Comprehensive Everglades Restoration Plan, or CERP. Storage features like the C-43 reservoir on the west coast and the C-44 reservoir on the east coast are operational, and the EAA reservoir is being accelerated and will provide the ability to store excess water in the wet season and hold it for when it's needed during the dry season. Preserving water availability into the dry season and year-round, as well as allowing more natural fluctuations in water levels, is why the completion of multiple storage features is so vital to the overall health of the system. Moving water to meet varying conditions and needs is essential to sustaining South Florida's people, our environment, and the economy. Make sure you check out our social media channels, including Facebook, Instagram, X, LinkedIn, and YouTube for the most up-to-date information.
That's all I got, Mr. Chair.
Oh, thanks very much, Drew. Does anyone have any questions or comments for the Executive Director? Okay. We're going to move now to general public comment. It's our first public comment period. If you're here to comment on a specific agenda item, we're asking that you hold that comment until we reach the item on our agenda. I know there's probably a lot of people who want to speak on consent, which is item 11, so we'd ask that you'd hold your comments until then. So this comment period is for general comments not related to agenda items. Public comments on consent, item 11 on the agenda. Public comments for discussion items will be heard directly after the presentation for the discussion. The public did have an opportunity to provide written comments. Prior to this meeting, we received 58 e-comments. Board members were provided copies of those comments, and the e-comments are included in the meeting packet posted on the district's website. Molly, I'm assuming there are some public comments.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. We'll hear first from Ben Olson, followed by Newton Cook.
Morning, everybody. Good morning, Governing Board. Shortly after last month's board meeting, I met with Seminole Tribal attorneys and Task Force member Osceola at Seminole Tribal headquarters. Across the 3-hour meeting, there were certainly moments of contention and disagreement, but to me it felt like there was also a path forward. What was described to me of the tribe's initial WERP stances was that the tribe believed their voice wasn't heard in the process, a feeling the private landowners are all too familiar with. Throughout the conversation, as Ms. Osceola would describe a position that tribal leadership held at a particular stage in the WERP process and concerns that led them to that position, I thought to myself, this almost sounds like the landowner position today. I'm obviously not speaking for the tribe, but I discussed with them the idea of having the meetings I spoke about last month, land steward meetings, in which the landowners and the tribes can sit down with water management staff to solve the feeder canal basin issues collaboratively. They seem to be amenable to the idea. I've already communicated with landowners in each region, and everybody seems to be on board. I imagine you'll hear from a few of them today. I have every intention of getting to the bottom of why WERP shifted so dramatically still, considering we are functionally moving towards the originally recommended designs, such as the connecting canal, and discussions of acknowledging the natural flowway for Kissimmee-Billy Strand being further east than the Corps initially believed. I also just finished my summary judgment process of my FOIA case, and I'm waiting on the court to rule, and I firmly believe the court is going to rule in my favor regarding the absurd 17-year production timeline the Department of Interior wants to take to release WERP-related documents. So soon enough, we'll have more documents to better understand why WERP shifted the ways it did, and I will continue to dig into every lead I uncover. But in the meantime, fixing WERP via the Feeder Canal Basin Water Quality Program obviously takes priority. That is accomplished by these land steward meetings, bringing everyone to the table at the same time to expedite this process. You have the ability to make that difference. You can instruct staff to host these meetings after the next round of modeling and general public meetings occur. I'm obviously not speaking for staff as well, but it seems like they too are interested in having the engaged land stewards be able to communicate to expedite the process. Those are my words, though, of course. Governing board member Alligator Ron has a famous line he likes to say. We're all in the same canoe together. But I think I have to steal a line from Diamond that she used a few months back, which fits more to our generation. We're all in the same side-by-side together. Governing board, just after these modeling meetings, let's host these land steward meetings. These meetings, sponsored and hosted by the district, would allow for a few landowners or the representatives from south of Wingate Mill, north of Wingate Mill, and Looneyville to sit down with the Seminole representatives and Miccosukee representatives if they are interested. Those meetings will be recorded so the other landowners can review it at their own pace and they can see what's said. We can host these semi-regularly to expedite the state project so we can secure the required funding as soon as possible to get WERP right. Help me facilitate it, governing board. Hop in that side by side with us. And all cheesiness aside, I think more was accomplished in 3 hours sitting down just communicating with each other than any other point in WERP. Getting us all in the room together, we will have this knocked out of the park in months, not years. So please, really, help me facilitate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. Next, we'll hear from Newton Cook, followed by Mitchell Latzman.
Thank you very much, Newton Cook, United Waterfowls. First thing is, Lake Okeechobee is probably in the best shape it's been in a decade, and Mother Nature's been awful kind to us with the drought. I know a lot of people need water, but Lake Okeechobee don't need no water. We need more burns. We're not burning enough. I mean, we got an opportunity probably 20 years ago before we had an opportunity like this, and I keep looking for the smoke. Come on, folks. We can't. You want to wait another 20 years? I mean, come on. We can do better. The other point is the muck removal. There's a nice project that was out there this past week or so of starting to remove some muck around the edges. There's 50 years of legacy, and I'm glad to see this Kissimmee subject this afternoon or later on today when I'll have some soft comments about that. But muck removal in the lake is probably the most important thing and challenge that we have. It's 50 years of muck on the bottom of that lake full of every kind of chemical and hazardous chemical you can think of, and also phosphorus. We got to do a better job on that. So I'm thinking out of the box. I've been preaching deep injection wells running, and there's different sinks out there that get a lot of that muck. And it's an ongoing thing. It's a not stopping thing. It took us 50 years to get here. And the Kissimmee River, even with the work that we're doing, is never going to stop sending muck down until we stop the flow. So you can't just stop and give up like we did 50 years ago. And that's why we have the most important problem in the lake today is the muck that's retained on the bottom. Although I'll just be a spectator, the recreation meeting is here on the June the 22nd at 5 o'clock. And again, I can only tell you the district just does an incredible job for the general public on their properties. And I always talk about the Wounded Warrior hunts that we have and the youth hunts that we have. And believe it or not, I just put in yesterday for the grant to help pay for the tens of thousands of dollars these events cost. But they will not work without the district's cooperation and the staff, particularly the staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. Next, we'll hear from Mitchell Latzman, followed by Mark Perry.
Morning, Governing Board members and staff. Mitchell Latzman, Science and Policy Analyst for Friends of the Everglades. The deadline to meet court-ordered phosphorus pollution limits for the Everglades is here. And after years of work to improve the STAs, our recent report on their performance shows we are still far short of what's needed to meet the QBO. The hard work of district staff to get us here should not be understated, but the truth remains that we do not have the STA capacity needed to get the job done. It's impossible to succeed when you don't have the tools at your disposal. The good news is there's a clear solution and state funding available for it. Scientific research underlies our Rescue the River of Grass initiative, which shows that in order to prevent harmful discharges to the northern estuaries and flow adequate amounts of clean water into the southern Everglades, we must buy more land in the Everglades agricultural area. Research shows that after the EA reservoir and SCA, we still need an additional 1 million acre feet of water storage and 25.7 thousand acres of new treatment marshes to do this. Then we can decompartmentalize the system and truly restore the flow of clean water at the right times of year through the Everglades down to Florida Bay. As farms come out of production due to soil subsidence, we cannot afford to miss the opportunity to buy land south of Lake Okeechobee before it is lost forever. And the money is available. In 2014, 75% of Florida voters approved a conservation land acquisition amendment that will generate about $1.3 billion annually for another 7 years, and we cannot let this go to waste. Friends of the Everglades would like to request a workshop to address STA performance and how the district plans to meet the pollution requirements of the QBEL. This would be a valuable opportunity to address shortfalls and plan for the future. We are not at the finish line. In fact, we are far from it. Everglades restoration won't succeed unless the water is clean, and until then, we must keep our foot on the gas. We are in this together, and it's time we finish the job. Let's rescue the River of Grass. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Latzman. Next, we'll hear from Mark Perry, followed by those on Zoom with their hands raised.
Morning, Governing Board. Mark Perry, Director of Florida Oceanographic. Appreciate being here. I do have a brief handout I'd like to take a quick look at there. This is kind of an update on our Northern Everglades and Estuaries Protection Program, the 3 watersheds that you always hear me talk about, and you do have monthly report in your packets. But the first page talks about when we set these total maximum daily loads back in 2001, 25 years ago for Okeechobee, 2009 for the other northern estuaries. The second page deals with, as you can see, the actual district data, and I put in there from the recent 2026 South Florida Environmental Report. This shows basically where all the loadings are coming from, each of these sub-basins within these areas. And I compare them to the TMDL target loads for each of the areas. And as you can see, most of the phosphorus nitrogen loadings are about 3 times higher than the total maximum daily loads in both loading and actual concentration. So we're concerned about how we're actually going to meet the DMDLs and the BMAP. And if you turn to the last page where I have the three graphs, they're showing right out of the 2025 BMAPs, basically shows that we're not meeting those milestones for reductions in the watershed. We need to do a better job. We need to really focus in on it. The FDP required that all the stakeholders have in projects by January 14 to meet these TMDLs by those respective dates. But we haven't heard back of how that review went. Are they working on it? So I request that maybe your staff can work with DEP and come back to you with a kind of an update. Are those projects really going to meet our TMDLs at those expected times? So appreciate focusing in on that. Flood control district. I've been coming to district meetings for the past 47 years. And it sure has grown and changed, as you saw in the video. Back in 1949, when you were established as the Central and Southern Florida Flood Control District, it has changed to the Water Management District, of course, in the 70s. But it means water management. And the drainage system that we put in place to do that, we got to be careful that we're not just over draining these lands and working to, at the same time, trying to restore natural wetlands and natural hydration through Everglades restoration and other projects. We've got to really concern ourselves with not over draining the lands. Flood protection is one thing, but when we're trying to drain it for other purposes, we got to be real careful about that. So thanks to the district, they've done a great job and tremendous work, as you can see in the video. All of your staff is working so hard to maintain this system throughout the basin. Let's all work on that.
Thank you,
that
Mr. Perry.
Quality, quantity, timing, distribution. So,
Thank you, Mr. Perry. Next, we'll move over to our participants on Zoom with their hands raised, starting with Kimberly Buchheit, followed by Nyla Pipes. Please unmute your mic. Ms. Buchheit?
Good morning. Can everyone hear me?
We hear you.
Very good. Thank you so much. And my name is Kimberly Buchheit. I'm a land surveyor and an independent consultant. I advise on real property issues and matters of title. And I'm a little concerned about the sequence of the comments today. So I want to get these general comments in now, even though they may overlap with some of the items on the consent agenda. I'm quite concerned on the real property issues and the release of the district's interest in real property, that those items are being done on a consent agenda at all, and also that to extinguish any interest in real property, I feel like the Water Management District is making a mistake in approving releases of conservation easements prematurely without legally sufficient descriptions of the property to be released. So I just want to make sure that it's clear, and I did submit comments in writing, that when we get to items 10 and 11, that I would ask that 15 and 16 be pulled, withdrawn completely, and if not, that they be added to the items for full discussion today. So I just wanted to make sure that that's clear if I don't get a chance to say that at any time before you take up the consent agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Buchheit. Next, we'll hear from Nyla Pipes, followed by Heather Kleckler.
Sound check.
We hear you.
Fantastic. Nyla Pipes, One Florida Foundation. While I was unable to attend the Laco County Coalition meeting on June 5th, I wanted to start there because I want to thank everybody involved in really working to improve our situation within the lake itself. This is something that I've been talking about for, well over a decade now, and really important that we acknowledge the work that we're doing along the way. Yes, we always need more. It is hard to get this work done, but with the scraping project, with the burns, both natural and controlled burns, which of course we prefer those controlled burns, but Mother Nature's going to do what it does. And, you know, we are a fire dependent system. So I want to applaud everybody involved for jumping in and making sure those controlled burns work in our favor. And of course, the muck, more of that. I was really disappointed not to get to go see that. I wish my schedule had aligned much better. But I'm here in the sidelines cheering y'all on, and I just want to be, you know, appreciative and to thank you and to encourage more of that. I understand that FWC also has some planting going on of native vegetation. All of these things matter. But I think the biggest thing is we have to find a way to make sure that there's ongoing funding for these projects. And it has to be flexible. Funding sitting there at the ready when conditions present themselves so that we can jump in and get these jobs done. I think we're getting better at that. But if you have any thoughts or ideas on how we can make this happen in a more concise way for all the agencies, I'd be glad to hear them and I'd be glad to help. So those are my comments for now. I'm sure I'll be talking to you a little bit later on. Thank you and good morning.
Thank you, Ms. Pipes. Next, we'll hear from Heather Kleckler, followed by Christine Stapleton.
Good morning. Can you hear me? Sound check.
We hear you.
Hi, good morning. I haven't seen y'all in a while, so it's good to see some of y'all, even though it's on an itty bitty screen. I just wanted to come on and kind of reiterate what Ben Olson said. I think the land stewardship meeting is a great idea. Getting all the stakeholders together to come up with a plan together instead of doing this in between where, okay, well, they said this, but now they said this. We can all come together and come up with one conclusion. And I know the tribe and the landowners and the stakeholders were all boots on the ground, get the job done kind of people. So I do think it would be effective and quick. We could come up with a conclusion quickly. So I just want to throw in my support for what Ben Olson said earlier. Thank y'all. Have a good day. And as always, go Gators. God is good. And this time, vote for Ben Butler for Florida Congress. Y'all have a good one.
Thank you, Ms. Kleckler. Next, we'll hear from Christine Stapleton, followed by Sergey Kelly. Please unmute Ms. Stapleton. Please unmute Ms. Stapleton. We'll move forward with Sergey Kelly.
Hello, great to see you all here. Just wanted to speak on items 13 for the Loxahatchee Slough. Obviously support that conservation easement going forward. It's an incredible area, and Loxahatchee and the acreage and that part of West Palm is getting severely developed. So this is a good step forward for more protections, so fully support it, and hopefully that goes through. And then also on items 15 and 16, I find very concerning because removing those conservation easements appears strongly to allow the roadways to be built to help establish a new city just southeast of Orlando, about 500,000 people. It has, FWC involved, the CFX. So I think for the South Florida Water Management District, if they do their part in preserving not just the water, but the land, but the heritage of Florida, I think it would be a good step in the right direction to not remove those conservation easements, despite what other stakeholders have done. So I strongly urge against that because, we can't imagine what will happen if we start removing conservation easements, putting roads there, removing, especially what FWC did over at Split Oak. Please don't follow in that example because Floridians don't want it. We see what's going on, and we'd rather have conservation easements added, like over in Loxahatchee Slough, than removed for more roads, more pavement, and more destruction of wild Florida. So thank you, and great to be here.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Mr. Chairman, we have no additional general public comment.
Well, thank you all for your comments. We'll move now to board comments, and I'll start with Mr. Bergeron.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, like I say at every meeting, it's a great honor to sit with this board and our staff, and it's amazing. Largest drainage district in the world. Quite an honor for me Also the largest environmental restoration ever attempted in the history of the world. What an honor for all of us. And I just want to thank all the stakeholders. The passion is amazing. And I've been in this arena since 1973. Kind of telling my age a little bit. I was 30 years old and sitting with Lawton Chiles and Governor Chiles, Senator Graham, Governor Graham, with the greatest preservation of land in modern time, the Big Cypress. And it's been quite a pleasure for me to make a difference. It's the way we can thank God for our journey. So I do want to thank our staff, just amazing. Thank all the stakeholders. And then you hear me talk a lot about the Tamiami Trail. It would sound like I'm taking partiality to a certain part of the Everglades. But as you've heard me say many times, that dam, one of the largest dams in the world, cut the Everglades in half, starting in 1915 and completed in 1928. We've been in this restoration for 25 years, going on 26 years. And we're right at the verge of connecting the natural flow of 2.5 million to 3 million acre feet of water for the first time in over 100 years. I want to thank Drew and all our staff. We have meetings once a month or every 2 months, and with a critical path of what's left at the Tamiami Trail to reconnect the natural flow to Florida Bay. And Drew, I want to thank you for putting together and keeping the pressure, working with our federal partners and all of our state partners as we connect this journey of water for the first time in 100 years. I am so excited. And I repeat myself nearly every meeting on this because this will be the biggest benefit of equalizing water levels with shared adversity and shared impacts through a global system for the first time in 100 years. And I'm just, can't tell you how excited I am about that. I know we have a meeting next week with all our federal partners, so we will keep you posted as we make this great connection. Western Everglades, I want to thank our staff again, working on the western weir portion of Western Everglades to make sure at the end of the day, we're truly restoring the Big Cypress. A pocketed rain-driven system. It's not the river of grass, it's a rain-driven system. And the day we start pushing foreign agricultural water, even if it's clean, into a rain-driven system, we're not restoring. And I know our staff, and I want to thank them, all the modeling and all of the hard work that's going on to model true restoration. Restoration for the Seminoles, the Miccosukee, our public Big Cypress Preserve, River of Grass, and our private Everglades. It's all about we making sure that we're truly restoring. I want to thank the governor and the legislators for the funding that allows us to continue to move forward at a very rapid pace. Question I want to ask, Drew, is you have the EAA funded separate and apart from the $500 million?
Yeah, the state's portion of building the EAA reservoir, which is the pump station, is funded with this legislative budget.
So, as we continue to go forward, I know you have the western side of the Tamiami Trail from the L-28 west, ready to go out for bid, I guess, by the first of the year.
Yeah, it's ready for this year, I believe. Yep.
Which will allow that 1 million acre feet of water that flowed naturally by gravity. And as we continue forward with the Blue Shanty, that's the last two little pieces to allow 2.5 million to 3 million acre feet of water that should never go in a reservoir with natural flow by gravity. And I can't tell you how excited I am about that, because we're going to see the biggest benefit that we've seen with all of the projects we've built over the past 25 years when we make that connection for the first time. It'll stop all of the drowning of the wildlife north of the trail and damage to God's landscaping, and it will stop seagrass from dying in Florida Bay. It's a huge step forward and getting benefits of what we've done starting in 2025 years ago. Congratulations to the 77 years. I think about that. I was 5 years old when all that started. And what a great organization, and I'm certainly proud to be a part of it. The other question I have is, for us to achieve clean water into the future, do we have any science on the load factor going into our STAs and the capability of the STA? Because we certainly, through best management practices, have to have a certain quality level coming in to achieve quality going out, and matching the inflows to the outflows through the river of grass. For us to achieve that at some point in time, we need all the best management practices that we can achieve to be able to meet that quality of water in the future. And thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry about talking so much, but
You never have to apologize. Thank you, Mr. Bergeron. There'll be opportunity for later in the meeting too. Colonel Roman?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Bergeron, it's certainly been an amazing journey, hasn't it? I mean, you highlight some of the things, but I mean, you can't stop talking about the interconnectedness of each of the projects and how they've contributed. I mean, when you talk about raising of the Tamiami Trail, we stood there and had the old portion removed, and we celebrated that. But then it wouldn't be possible to move more water south if we didn't put the curtain wall in. And so that was a long time coming, and it's just one thing after another that it makes me so proud to serve on the board with all of you and work with such a tremendous staff and Drew, because it's just been an amazing journey. And I think you're highlighting that overall as we continue to make progress and to work on the things that we need to continue to do. And your comments about the Big Cypress are well taken, because having visited the Big Cypress on many occasions, I mean, the water there is so clean and so clear. I mean, I'd have no hesitation in taking a cup and filling it up and drinking it. I mean, it just is an amazing place. And I think as we move forward with WERP that we have to consider all aspects of that project and move it forward like we have with all the other projects that we've done in our tenure here in the past 8 years. And to echo one of your other comments, it wouldn't have been possible without the consistent funding, the governor's leadership and the consistent funding from the legislature. And that's what allowed us to move the ball down the field here and score some goals. So I really appreciate your comments and also our time together here on the board. And speaking of a smaller celebration, but a very, very important one, we had the opportunity to celebrate the ribbon cutting and the completion of the Lake Trafford Tower project, which is a part of the Big Cypress Basin Capital Projects program. And the reason this tower is so significant is because it ties the Big Cypress Basin now into the backbone network that stretches from Naples all the way to West Palm Beach. So there is a now tower that holds an incredible amount of SCADA equipment that ties in a key part of the district to the backbone network, which is the Big Cypress Basin. And we celebrated, and the Big Cypress Basin Board had an opportunity to cut the ribbon with Drew Bartlett, who came over for that ceremony, and our Basin Administrator, Lisa Keeler, and all of the senior staff that came. I want to really thank you for your support in facilitating this. It's going to give us real-time monitoring, and it's going to help us improve flood control operations, making them more efficient, and also the accuracy of those flood control operations for about 400,000 people now in Collier County. So it's going to be great for the field station folks and everyone who's part of that. So that's been a long time coming. That tower was completed in just over a year, and it was on budget, so that's another success story. And I want to give a special shout out to Tom Sutterfield and Les Richards, who worked on this project for about 6 years before it was ready to turn over to the capital program and get it all done. So thank you to the senior staff for your great support. Lucine, you and your whole team. It was great, and it was a great celebration, and thank you for the tremendous support. And that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Colonel Roman. Mr. Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To begin with, going off of Drew's report, I do also want to send my thanks to the legislature for their budgeting support for all of our restoration projects, including SERP, and getting these contracts fully funded. I assume the governor will sign these, but so I don't want to get ahead of him, but I do want to thank the legislature for giving the governor the opportunity. So thank you to the legislature there. Drew mentioned it, the county coalition meeting on Friday. Certainly as usual, another great meeting. I encourage you to tune in if you really want to know what's going on and get some updates from the other agencies, including the Corps. And now we've got Dr. Tom Reinert with FWC, and then Ed Smith with DEP were there giving updates on Lake Okeechobee project. So it's a worthwhile hour and a half if you can afford to spend that watching that. I encourage you to tune in and to go back and watch the video. With that, the field trip afterwards, recognizing the muck scraping going on Lake Okeechobee. Again, one of the projects that FWC is taking the lead on, but the district has certainly been an extreme part of it. Getting the haul road set up, putting the ditch block in, and I want to say thank you to the neighbors of Buckhead Ridge, because as we noted, one of the I got to ride out with one of the neighbors out to the lake. We actually rode out, took the trucks out in the lake. I think Rich Virgil had a lot of vehicles to wash when they got back to the district. There was a little mud out there. We were at the lake. I think we were at the 14. I think the elevation was about 14-foot level where we were driving at, right? That's where the muck scraping was happening. Cassandra, is that right? Does that sound right? 14 foot? Okay. I'm hitting everybody cold here. Mitnick, you know everything. No, okay. Anyways, but it was neat to be able to stand out in that 260 acre, potentially. I think at that time we had cleared 110 acres FWC had done. The Texas contractor was in there. He was running, they were running 12-hour shifts 7 days a week. They're rolling on it. Again, knowing time's of the essence before the lake starts coming up and rains really start, could hamper the future of that project. But hopefully we get 260, 270 acres cleared. Great project. We need more of them. You know, it doesn't sound like much when you're talking a 400,000 square acre, 400,000 acre lake, just to be talking 287 acres, but that's going to make a difference. as Jen Reynolds says, it's a bite at the, it's how you eat an elephant, one bite at a time. So I commend SWC, the district. Getting back to the Hall Road, the districts were, certainly dust was an issue with vehicles going down, and, you know, but they were amenable because they knew what was happening, and they were glad that project was happening. So, finally, I do want to recognize, we had a couple comments today, Mr. Olson and Ms. Heather. Jen, I would support, you know, some type of stewardship meeting update. I think that would be good to meet with those folks over in the western side as we begin to work on that water quality project. I think that would go a long ways, and I know that's right up your alley. The district has been the leader in collaboration there, and I think it probably is time to go ahead and let's get something going there. So, with that, that's what I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Butler. Mr. Hurley.
Hey, good afternoon or good morning, everybody. Recently attended the ribbon cutting at the Cypress Creek Restoration, and I was really impressed and just want to thank Ducks Unlimited and Fish and Wildlife, Martin County, Palm Beach County, and district staff, and Drew, of course, leading it, for the collaboration to make something like that happen. We don't really talk a lot about sort of the east side up where I am in Martin and Palm Beach County, but it was a really important project because it's going to sustain a much higher water quality going into the Loxahatchee River, which is one of our state's few wild and scenic rivers. So I thought it was a great example of collaboration between agencies, and everybody there was very pleased with the working relationships that were established. So looking forward to future collaborations. It was a great event. That's all.
Thanks, Mr. Hurley. Ms. Martinez.
No comments, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Martinez. Jill, I'd like to thank you and the comm staff for that video. That was really good, and I think we ought to try and figure out a way to make that, put it into a new homeowners packet for anyone moving to South Florida, just so they sort of see. We give a lot of speeches to chambers of commerce and Rotaries and Kiwanis and stuff, and that would be a really good kickoff video. So thank you for putting that together. It explains the district pretty well. And as we are in flood control month, it's what we are based on. It's our root. It's what we're really good at, and it's what's totally taken for granted. And it shouldn't be. I was in D.C. yesterday talking to members of Congress, and not one person mentioned flood control because we do it really well, and they just assume it's going to happen. But we can't. We have just an incredible staff here that is working really hard to make sure that it does happen. So I just want to thank them. I want to thank you all for staying so focused on it. And as we're all working on Everglades restoration, and that gets all the noise, the flood control is just so important. And as I said, we're good at it. So let's keep it up. I do want to thank the governor, and I want to thank the legislature for funding this year. This would be Governor DeSantis' last budget, and by any measure, it's his commitment to restoration has just been both historic and record-breaking, and I thank him and the legislature for that. As we celebrate 77 years, I do want to just say happy birthday, I guess, to the district, and I also want to say that how happy I am to be able to serve with Ron Bergeron, who was part of the original 2 million when the district was founded, which is, there are not a lot of people who can say that. So to be able to serve with you, sir, is amazing. And thank you for your leadership and guidance and insights. We're going to move now to, where are we? Consent agenda. Is there any board member who wants to move a consent agenda to discussion? If not, we'll see if there's any public comment on consent.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We do have public comment on consent, beginning with Deborah Drum, followed by Mark Perry.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Governing Board members, Executive Director Bartlett, and team. My name is Deb Drum. I'm the Director of Palm Beach County's Environmental Resources Management Department, and I'm here today representing Palm Beach County. Palm Beach County sincerely thanks South Florida Water Management District staff, especially Molly Siebrecht, Joan Finley, and Ray Palmer, for their excellent collaboration and support in helping advance the county's long-term preservation and conservation goals for the Loxahatchee Slough Natural Area, which is also part of the headwaters of the wild and scenic Loxahatchee River. We respectfully request your approval of agenda item number 13 today, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Drum. Next, we'll hear from Mark Perry, followed by Lisa Interlandi.
Morning again, Governing Board, Mark Perry. Just two items, item 18 and 19, or is it, yeah, 18 and 19. So 18 is Central Everglades Planning Project South Phase, is affectionately called SEP South. And this is really good, and I like the fact that the last sentence in the first paragraph really outlines it. The SEP South Phase will remove water flow barriers in southern portion of the project footprint to allow natural flows of water south into Everglades National Park, which you hear over and over by Governing Board member Bergeron and others. All of us is send the water south, and that's really a great thing. I know it's a big move, a big change order to that particular contract, big addition, but it's really going to be worth it in the long run to move that water. Item 19 deals with the lifting of the water restrictions or consideration of those water shortage restrictions imposed on the West Coast. We just got to be careful that, as we get into dry seasons like we did this past, that they have adequate supply of water. We've overdrained the Caloosahatchee, and we really need to have that water supply provided to them through their minimum flows and levels during those dry seasons. So I know we can do a better job at that, and we appreciate your help with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. Next, we'll hear from Lisa Interlandi, followed by Christine Stapleton, who has her hand raised on Zoom.
Good morning, everyone. Lisa Interlandi with the Everglades Law Center. I just wanted to second the support that was expressed by Palm Beach County Environmental Resources Director Drum relative to the Loxahatchee Slough reservations issue. I know that I've come up here before asking that the district be very cautious with releasing the reservations and looking into those issues very carefully, and I appreciate that you have done that. This is an item that is necessary for the long-term preservation of Loxahatchee Slough. We appreciate so much that the county is moving forward to put the third-party conservation easement on it. And, look, when you're looking at protecting something in perpetuity, that means till the end of time. So we need every single bit of protection that we can have on these conservation lands, because while everyone wants to protect it today, we never know what the future will hold. So we very much appreciate your support so that Palm Beach County can go ahead and place those third-party conservation easements on this land, and hopefully it will be preserved forever. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Interlandi. Moving over to Zoom with their hands raised, we'll hear from Christine Stapleton, followed by Kimberly Buchheit.
Yes, can you hear me?
We hear you.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Christine Stapleton, and I'm commenting today about the contracts for the EAA reservoir, the modified contracts 11A and 11B. In particular, I pulled out a document called the Justification Review Document Other Than Full and Open Competition. The document pertains to how the modifications will happen. And I found many, many redactions, including redactions regarding the cost of the project and competitive bidding. On the competitive bidding, there's a page that says allowing for full and open competition of the work required in the modification would require termination of the current contract and reprocurement of the same scope of work. This process would result in unacceptable delays to contract 11B and make completion of the reservoir by 31st of December 2029 unachievable. And I'm just wondering if that really is a legal excuse for not doing competitive bidding. We were also told last month the project will cost $2.1 billion, but everything about the cost of the project is redacted in this justification statement. So I was wondering what FOIA exemption is being used to redact all this information. And then also on resolution 2026-0502 that you approved last month regarding the sale of 155 acres to Thale. I was wondering if you could provide the public with more details about the housing units that are going to be put out there, how many there will be, what type, and if proper permits have been obtained already, what permits those are. And those are my questions. I hope you can answer them at some point. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stapleton. We'll hear from Kimberly Buchheit.
Hello, can you hear me?
We hear you.
Very good, thank you. Kimberly Buchheit. I'm in Apopka, Florida. I'm a professional land surveyor and an independent consultant advising on real property issues and matters of title. I've been surveying in Florida for 40 years, so I have gray hair. If you could see me, you would know I've been at this for a while. I did submit written comments. This is regarding consent agenda items 15 and 16. The board is being asked to approve the release of certain parts of several conservation easements. So just to put a fine point on what you're being asked to do is you're being asked to extinguish South Florida Water Management District's interest in real property. And in Florida, that can only be done certain ways, and it's generally done with a deed if, in fact, the original conservation easements were placed by deed, which they were. So you've got some requirements that need to be met between the parties that were the actual parties that signed the deed to begin with, and those conditions have not been met. Furthermore, none of the releases are accompanied by sufficient legal descriptions to define the property that you are being asked to legally release. And this is a very dangerous precedent you're setting if you approve these items without the requisite information. And quite frankly, I'm shocked. I've worked with the district for years and other districts, and this is just out of sorts with the way real property transactions are done. This simply looks sloppy and rushed. So I urge you to defer approval on these items, get it right, and consult your legal people, your title people. You guys deal with real property all the time, and somebody in your shop knows that this is wrong to do this way. So please get it right, or you will be doing it again, and you will be asked to resolve the problems that you're creating today if you approve items 15 and 16 without the right information. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Buchheit. Next, we'll hear from Andrew Cole, followed by Christina Logano. Mr. Cole, please unmute your mic.
Hi there, my name is Andrew Cole. I'm president of the East Orlando Chamber of Commerce, representing businesses throughout more than 440 square miles of East Orange County, east of I-4. I speak as a resident of the region and also who has experienced the transportation challenges facing our communities every day. For years, I have been engaged in discussions regarding transportation planning, route alternatives, and the future infrastructure of the needs of Central Florida. Through those conversations, one message has remained consistent. Our region needs improvement and improved east-west connectivity and additional transportation options to relieve growing congestion in our existing roadways, particularly Narcoossee Road. I'm here today in support of the conservation easement releases associated with the Osceola Parkway extension, also known as State Road 534, and that is on consent agendas 15 and 16. This is not simply another toll road. State Road 534 has been envisioned and planned for decades as part of a broader regional transportation network. It is a critical connection that will link roads and expressways to our residents, businesses who already rely upon while addressing the mobility challenges that we're already facing, not just tomorrow. The question before us is not whether growth is coming, but growth is already here. Our existing roadway network, including heavily traveled corridors such as the Narcoossee Road, is increasingly burdened, and the need for additional transportation capacity continues to grow. Transportation infrastructure requires foresight, and if this corridor is not preserved and in advance now, future development may make this critical connection impossible to achieve. I also recognize balancing of conservation needs with transportation needs is a delicate responsibility. I believe this project represents that balance. While conservation easement impacts are being considered today, the proposed mitigation provides a significant environmental benefit through the preservation and enhancement of hundreds of acres of KPB cattle ranch. In fact, the conservation opportunities associated with this project far exceed the acreage being impacted, creating a meaningful expansion of protected lands that will benefit wildlife, nature resources, and future generations. Perhaps most importantly, this is a once-in-a-generation opportunity. If this corridor is not preserved and advanced today, future development may permanently eliminate the ability to create this critical transportation connection. On behalf of the East Orlando Chamber of Commerce and businesses we represent, I respectfully ask you for your support of these resolutions and this important project. Thank you for time and consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Cole. Next, we'll hear from Christina Logano, followed by Wayne Allen.
Hello, can you hear me?
We hear you.
Perfect. I am Christina Agano. I would just like to make a quick comment on items 15 and 16. I would like you guys to say no to water easements for a toll road. I oppose agenda items 15 and 16 and request the board deny the proposed conservation easement releases for SR 534. Thank you. That is it.
Thank you, Ms. Logano. Next, we'll hear from Wayne Allen, followed by Monica Roosh.
Good morning. Can you guys hear me?
We hear you.
Good morning, governing members, staff. My name is Wayne Allen. I'm a resident of the Lake Nona community. I've lived there for over 18 years. I'm a practicing engineer. I've been a civil engineer for the past 18 years. I am calling to speak on behalf of recommending consent 15 and 16 get approved. Traffic in Lake Nona is horrible. Development is continuing. Not to get into as much details, I think everyone has spoke on it before, but if not today, when, right? Because people are going to continue to move to the community. They're moving to the areas, and we really need these highways. Thanks. That was it.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Next, we'll hear from Monica Roosh, followed by Cheryl Rogers.
Hello, I'm a local Floridian here, and I just wanted to speak on items 15 and 16 and request that the board denies the proposed conservation easement release. These areas are critical habitat for the wildlife corridor. They host a lot of endemic species that are charismatic and important to the state of Florida. And on the interest of managing water, adding more pavement to these areas is going to deplete aquifer recharge. So I would like the board to consider how paving over our natural areas will impact directly the purpose of the water management district. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Roosh. Next, we'll hear from Cheryl Rogers, followed by Shirley Moordock.
Good morning, everyone. Agenda items 15 and 16 ask this board to release over 55 acres of conservation easements for a toll road. I urge you to refuse. I'm speaking today because I believe what happens to Split Oak Forest matters, not just to the people who hike its trails or the wildlife that depends on its corridors, but to every Floridian who was told these lands would be protected forever. Forever. When we protect land, we make a commitment. Replacing those acres somewhere else does not honor that commitment. It just moves the line. And once we accept that conservation protections can be released whenever a road project needs the land, we've made every piece of protected parcel in this state a little less safe. Split Oak Forest deserves better. Florida deserves better. Please vote no on items 15 and 16. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rogers. Next, we'll hear from Shirley Mordock, followed by Kim Heiss. Please unmute Ms. Mordock.
Hello, yes. Hello, my name is Shirley Mordock. I am a multi-generation Florida resident that has lived in multiple Florida cities over the last 30 years. I ask that we say no to the items 15 and 16 that remove protections to build new roads, and vote yes on 13 to add conservation easement. I am speaking today to express my deep concern regarding the continual overdevelopment and destruction of our natural landscape in Florida. As residents, we are witnessing the erosion of our state's unique character in favor of corporate expansion and unnecessary new developments. It is so disheartening to see plans for entire new cities and repetitive corporate structures when existing housing remains unfilled, when small businesses are falling short to corporate businesses. I think we've all noticed the copy and paste versions of cities where everyone now looks the same. We are knocking down the whole part of our one in a world state. We are one in a world. Florida is unique. When we can't even fix our current cities, this trend towards homogenization driven by big corporations is making life increasingly difficult for those people who love Florida for what it is. We need leadership that prioritizes the long-term preservation of our state and over their short-term interest. I urge you all to I urge you all to consider the lasting impact each and every one of you up there makes. Our communities deserve a system that values local identity and sustainability rather than one that simply erases what makes Florida special. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Mordock. Next, we'll hear from Kim Heiss, followed by Michael Francis.
Hello, can you hear me?
We hear you.
Great. Thank you for having me. My name is Kim Heisey, and I'm a Florida wildlife artist and conservation advocate. I'm calling in from Broward to ask you to not release the conservation easements for a toll road. I've been working with people around the state to help fight these toll roads for years, and Floridians know exactly what is going on here, and we are very much against this. No amount of mitigation lands would be worth destroying these easements because it is not about getting the largest acreage of easements. It's about stopping a toll road that would devastate the state. Floridians are not fooled by this. We see exactly what this is about and what is going on. We see agencies working to advance the goals of a handful of large land developers at the expense of our future, while it is being presented like an inevitability. The toll roads are not being proposed for the good of the public. They are preying on the pain inflicted upon us by prior bad planning and the traffic problems caused by urban sprawl to justify building more of it. This road won't relieve traffic. It's going to add more. We have to get away from the lie that one more toll road will solve our problems. The problem is not a lack of roads. It's our style of planning cities to spread out over large geographical areas. We have more toll roads in Florida than in any other state. These roads are being pushed by a handful of special interests to allow a handful of large land developers to build a city half the size of Orlando right in the middle of the Florida Wildlife Corridor. There isn't enough potable water in that area to accommodate another city that size in Central Florida. And that level of development would destroy the heart of the Florida Wildlife Corridor and destroy what makes Florida a place worth living. The South Florida Water Management District should not be making choices to release our taxpayer-funded conservation easements just to line the pockets of a couple billionaires, and especially not to put our water and futures at risk. So please do the right thing. Consider how releasing the easements would allow further destruction down the line and how that flies in the face of what you stand for. And demonstrate that you know what's going on. Say no to releasing these easements. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Heisey. Next, we'll hear from Michael Francis, followed by Bob Stein.
Hello, can you hear me?
I hear you.
Hello, my name is Michael Francis. I'm a Brevard County resident, and my only goal in life is to have the privilege to live and die in Florida. in its beautiful lands. And that won't be possible if y'all continue to go back on your word on protected lands. Adding another lane to a highway will only invite more traffic. Adding another road will only invite more development. You all promised to protect that land till the end of time, and by extension, protect our water and our ability to sustain ourselves on this land. And going back on this word only further proves that any promise from our governing agencies doesn't mean anything. Please uphold your word and just let us live in peace on the land that we love. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Francis. Next, we'll hear from Bob Stein, followed by a comment we received in the room, Mr. Drew Martin.
This is Bob Stein. We heard about protecting conservation land in perpetuity earlier, and Split Oak and Green Place properties are just such properties and should be continued to be protected. I submitted a lengthy objection in writing, and I hope it's in your packet, and I hope you've had a chance to read and consider it. I tend to ramble, so I won't try to reiterate everything that was written in there. CFX must deliver a route that does not chew up conservation land. I agree that mobility is a problem here in Florida, but using conservation land needs to be off the table. They need to come up with a better plan, and I believe that they can. They just need to be put to the task. I urge you to deny items 15 and 16 on the consent agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stein. Next, we'll hear from Drew Martin.
Drew Martin, I'm here on behalf of the Sierra Club, Loxahatchee Group of Palm Beach County, Martin County, and St. Lucie County. But I'm also here on behalf of the Sierra Club. We're concerned about giving away conservation easements, but we're glad that you're going to pass the land to Palm Beach County so they can have a third-party conservation easement. This takes the pressure off of government being asked to release conservation easements. We're concerned, however, about the fact that in the Osceola case that you're releasing land that may not be protected. The good thing about the South Florida Water Management District is your ability to have the staff that knows what they're doing and protects the land. I'm always concerned that the funding is there to do the adequate protections. So I'm concerned when I hear that the changes in property tax revenue may affect funding. Hopefully that is not going to affect your funding here at the governing board here for South Florida Water Management District, but I am concerned that it will affect the counties. Again, so I'm happy to see that Palm Beach County will have the ability to set up a third-party conservation easement, and so I am in favor of that, but I'm against giving the land away in Osceola County because we're giving away land that it will not be protected, and that I think will be bad for the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Mr. Chairman, we have no additional public comment on consent.
Well, thank you all very much for your comments. If there's a, let's see, can I have a motion and a second to approve?
I'll move to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Is there discussion?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Butler.
If I could, please. Thank you, sir. Mr. Martin, good to see you, sir. Haven't seen you in a while. Appreciate your comments also. I just want to say regarding number the front half here, I believe it 13, 15, 16 here. I've seen the rest of my board take any release of easement or reservation serious, and I've spent hours in the last week when I finally saw this on the agenda, poring over these details. I'll tell you this in particular here with 15 and 16 with Split Oak has been on my radar for years. I keep up with everything in my northern part, and it's something I have paid attention to, kept up with it.
I'll say that where we've arrived at here with the request on this release of easement is a result of lots of years of work in the public process. There's been collaborative work. This plan has changed over time. The original plan was to go right through the middle of Split Oak. This has been modified to the bottom corner of Split Oak, and there were some alternatives that were looked at, but they were extreme in cost. And I'll tell you, looking over the exchange value here, getting a 10-for-1 difference along with some dollars to provide some restoration on this entire package as a whole is a great opportunity. It's a great opportunity for the wildlife corridor. And so again, as we go through this, I'm going to support this agenda item. On a personal note, Orlando Airport is my home airport. It's one of the closest airports for me. And before the Greenway was open, my travel lane was to go up Canoe Creek Road, hit Narcoossee Road, and then or hit 192, then Narcoossee, and then Boggy Creek to go in the bottom side of Orlando Airport. For years, that's the way I traveled to Orlando Airport till the Greenway opened up, and that changed it. I had a few hours before I took a flight recently, and I tried going up that way earlier. It's a good thing I had a few hours to spare because traffic on Narcoossee Road was horrendous. And I did. I hit it during the middle of school hours. So I understand the issues that we're dealing with here. I understand what Osceola County has been dealing with, and I respect Osceola County's recommendation. We have a full recommendation letter in our packet here. I also appreciate the Audubon weighing in on the alternative when the alternative was selected, and appreciate their analysis and looking at it. I appreciate all the comments we received today. We've received a lot of comments on this agenda item, which is, for us is not, is not typical. So it definitely throws the radar off. However, again, I have evaluated this thing. I know the rest of my governing board, because we constantly scrutinize easements, release of easements, and release of reservations. So I just wanted to add that in, and I will be supporting. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Butler. Is there further discussion? If not, I'm going to call that question. Mr. Bergeron.
I would like to make a comment first.
All right. I'm not going to call the question. I'm going back to comments.
Right.
Mr. Bergeron. Go ahead.
Yeah. It's very difficult when you have a conservation easement to make any alterations, but understanding the safety and welfare of the general public, and also seeing that the mitigation is 5 times more. I think the additional mitigation that's being offered here is 5 times greater than the 51 acres that we're talking about. So I think that you have to have flexibility in the future as we continue to move forward in Florida. So I'm okay with it.
Thank you, Mr. Bergeron. I have one housekeeping thing I'd like to take care of right now. Mr. Spotswood, you're on the line now, and before you vote, I'd like to know if you have any abstentions you'd like to let us know about.
No, Mr. Chair, I do not.
Thank you. Mr. Spotswood has no abstentions. Is there any further discussion on this item? Hearing none, I'm going to call the question. Mr.
Yes,
Bergeron.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Martinez, go ahead.
Yes, just real quickly, I just want to echo what my colleague Ben Butler and Alligator Ron said. Conservation easements should be pretty sacred. And while I agree with Ron that there needs to be some flexibility, and I believe this is one of those outliers that Osceola County and all the other agencies before have navigated through and have been able to get us a good deal. But make no mistake, whether it's a 10-to-1, 5-to-1, 100-to-1, we need to be very, very careful and make sure that we scrutinize and we look at whenever somebody wants to remove a conservation easement. And again, I'm in favor of this one, but make no mistake, anytime these come before us, I'm gonna leave no stone unturned before I can vote in favor of one in the future. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for your comment, Ms. Martinez. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Call the question. Mr. Bergeron.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm going to vote yes. Colonel Roman.
Yes.
Mr. Butler.
Yes.
Mr. Hurley.
Yes.
Mr. Martinez.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Spotswood.
Yes.
Thank you. That passes unanimously. We'll move now to discussion. And we have the Kissimmee River Restoration and Management Area update. Dr. Welch and Mr. Feeney.
Good morning, everybody. So as you know, the Kissimmee River restored portion of the Kissimmee River lies within the Kissimmee River Management Area. So we wanted to give an update on some of the progress that we've made in that region and also some of the challenges that remain. So I'll go over the river restoration project updates and then we'll have Mr. Feeney come up and talk about the Kissimmee River Management Plan. So I want to do a little geography background for those that aren't familiar with the project area. The restored portion of the river we're talking about is in green. It's the middle third of the Kissimmee River channel. And it's restored all of the meandering river channels and there's no more canal in that region. Right above that, between S65 and S65A is what we call Pool A. That's the unrestored portion and that's where we have control sites so we can compare the data we're collecting in the restored portion to the unrestored portion and make it comparisons there for our monitoring. The lakes highlighted above that, right above the S65 structure, are called the headwater lakes. And those are the lakes that feed the Kissimmee River project. So as I get into talking about the need for further hydrologic restoration, for increasing the flows or more closely mimicking natural flows to the river, that's what's coming out of those headwater lakes at S65 and ultimately S65A. And those lakes are Cypress, Hashtag, and Kissimmee primarily. So a little more background. I wanted to remind people that we've been in a construction phase. I heard Bergeron talk about this, about 20 plus years of construction in SERP, and now you're moving towards hydrologic restoration. We're the same place in the Kissimmee River. We've had about 20 years of construction. Now we're moving towards hydrologic restoration where we expect to see further improvements. I also wanted to point out, because the construction's been going on for so long, the first portion was completed in about 2001. And the last portion in 2021. So we've really had about 20 years difference between the earliest restored portion and the most recently restored portion. So it's not all the same communities out there right now. We have freshly restored and those that have been around for 25 years now. So the physical restoration portion stopped in 2021. That's where we've completed backfilling the canals and restoring those meandering river channels, and now we're moving into the hydrologic restoration where we're trying to more closely mimic natural flows to the river. And the way we do that is through adding storage in those headwater lakes. So the Army Corps is leading a process right now called the Headwaters Revitalization Schedule Project. There's a public meeting on June 24th, project delivery team meeting, and we're adding 100,000 acre feet of storage up there, and that allows us to be a little more intentional and a little more judicious with the flows coming out of those lakes to meet some of those historic targets and flows. So that hopefully will be in place in 2027. Now when I talk about trying to mimic natural historic flows, this is a graph showing relative stage and river on the y-axis. You can think of it as kind of like a river depth, but not an absolute depth. This is many gauges over different elevations and time and things. So. But you can see prior to regulation in blue, we had a wildly varying river depth and river flows and also higher overall depth. And then, of course, in the channelized period, when the river was disconnected from the canal, we didn't have any variation. And then we've moved into this interim construction period. And you can see, especially in the latter period, as we started getting more of those areas restored, we're starting to see more natural historic flows. But what we need to see is the headwaters revitalization schedule and continue improvements, moving us back closer to what we see in the left side of the graph in blue. So having the background out of the way, I just also wanted to give people a sense of the scale of this project. So these are massive bulldozers here in the upper right that push dirt all day long into this huge C38 canal. And when you zoom out and look at those at scale, this is one here. It's a really big project area. And I also wanted to point out it does create some soil disturbance, obviously, when you have areas that have had spoil piled on them for 30 plus years, and that's pushed back into the canal. All of that is new soil, essentially. It's ripe for invasion by exotic species that are really good at colonizing these disturbed areas. And so we do have those management concerns, which Rory will touch on. So let's talk about the success and start with the channel itself. Obviously, when we backfilled the channel, you can see that disappear from the image in 99 to 2004. And also you can see a beautiful meandering river channel restored and these little back channels in a flooded floodplain. In a very short period of time, we saw great success in those regions. I also wanted to point out that one of the things we're looking for in a historic river channel is its ability to kind of carve its way and meander through the floodplain. That creates a lot of diversity in flows and habitats and things of that nature. So we have these transects we set up on these meandering bends. One of them is shown up here on the top left. You basically walk along that transect and take depths as you go from one side of the river to the next. So in 2007, this is what that profile looked like. You can see there's really not a lot of variation in depth. You have steep shorelines. It's kind of a V-shaped channel. 15 years later in 2022, what's impressive is it's moved about 29 meters, so almost a football field. That channel has scoured its way across the floodplain. But you can also see this really big, shallow gradient now, a large area over tens of meters where you have shallow depths, slower flows, sandbars, vegetation coming in. It's great habitat for the fish and invertebrates and everything that need that kind of habitat structure. So that is important, and we saw that happen right away across the floodplain as that historic river was restored. Another interesting thing we saw in 2014, this happened just over the period of one summer where we had one of these meander cutoffs occur, basically of scouring on the north side and the south side, and eventually it gets so thin that the river blows through. That creates this oxbow lake, which will eventually be isolated and be more of a palustrine environment, creating more diversity on the floodplain. So all these are great things that we want to see and representative of this natural system. And this picture is kind of worth 1,000 words. It captures a lot of what we wanted to see. As the river erodes its way through the floodplain, you inevitably get some trees falling in there. That creates a lot of structure for the critters that need that. You have the sandbars on the left. So this just captures a lot of what the success we saw early on, and really is from the bottom of the food chain up once we restored those conditions. So let's talk about the floodplain. So this is prior to restoration, obviously, and you can see a lot of the vegetation in the floodplain, because it's isolated from the canal, is upland vegetation, which is in this kind of pale yellow color. And when we move forward just a few years, we immediately saw wetland restoration. So once we got water on the floodplain, we see that community convert to wetland plants. We've already met the estimates that we thought we would restore in terms of wetland acreage, so that's a real positive. And where we have some work to do is, while those are wetland communities on the floodplain, they're not necessarily the hydro period communities we want. So the plants that were there historically had wetter conditions and they liked water on the floodplain longer. So those are in pink, excuse me. And if you just compare pink historically to the pink on the right, you can see we have a lot more blues and greens and a lot less pinks. And that just means that the communities there now need longer floodplain inundation, which is where that headwaters revitalization schedule comes in. We can use that additional storage to prolong the period of flow that gets the water out onto the floodplain. I should also mention, thank you, Jen, that the greens in here are invasive shrubs. It's really just willow coverage, and that's, again, an indicator that it's a little dry. You can talk to the St. Johns River Water Management District about the challenges they have with willow and their sawgrass marshes. Those are things we hope to see improve as we move towards hydrologic restoration. But as I mentioned, those disturbed soil areas, a lot of these purples up in here are short hydro period invasive exotic grasses, and we need to focus management in those areas, which Rory will get into as well. As far as the faunal response, once we inundated the floodplain, we got great productivity booms, lots of prey production, and then as those areas dry out, we had the prey concentration, and we saw really good response in wading birds and waterfowl. And we have these targets based on prior conditions that we'd like to see in terms of density of birds on the floodplain, whether that's waterfowl or wading birds. And we're already meeting those 85% of the time, even though we don't have the full hydrologic restoration yet. Where we are lacking, and this is because we don't have the floodplains wet for as long as we'd like to see them wet, that duration period, we'd like to see these high densities well into the dry season, into their breeding season, and we don't see that yet because we don't have the water there that long. And so again, that's what we hope to see improved in Headwaters' revitalization schedule. Dissolved oxygen is really important. When you have these isolated river bends that don't see any flow, you get a lot of organic material built up, you have low DO. Once we restored the flow through those areas, we blew out the organics and have that hard bottom sand substrate. We saw oxygen levels improve dramatically. So on the left here is that pool A, the control sites. Blue is before, red is after construction. And then the restored area, you can see essentially really big rebound in average dissolved oxygen concentrations, especially in the dry season. So where we still have some work to do is in the wet season when we have these big flows come down the river. But having better dissolved oxygen concentrations on average is great because that promotes the kind of native fish community we want to see, the sunfish and the bass, a lot of the sport fish. So you guys know Dr. Armstrong presents every month the eco conditions reports, and you see this graph up on the right that we still have, at least some time of the year, really low dissolved oxygen. That happens in the summer when obviously there's less oxygen in the water, but also through these first big flow periods where a lot of the floodplain is inundated very quickly. So what drives that is this biological oxygen demand. When we have high nutrient water essentially that's flooding these areas that have been dry for a long time. There's a lot of organic material up there to break down, and those microbial communities go crazy and their respiration consumes the oxygen in the water. If we can slow the rate at which we inundate those areas that have been dry for a long time, that's one way to help reduce that crash in dissolved oxygen. And also, we have these exotic grass communities that I talked about, which grow very dense. They have a lot of very fine leaf litter. And when we inundate those areas quickly, that further increases that biological oxygen demand and decreases the DO. So those are areas we hope to see improvements as we work on management through the management plan, as well as using that additional storage to kind of slow that ascension rate of those big flows in the summer period. And with that, I'll summarize. Most of the really good progress we saw early on is based on the river channel. Obviously, when we reconnected those areas, we saw really good performance in most of the metrics that we track. Where we expect to see and need to see some further improvements really all have to do with getting water on the floodplain for a longer period of time. So that additional 100,000 acre feet of storage upstream is what we hope to get us there. So I also want to point out to the public, if you want to follow any of these results, we have in a South Florida Environmental Report, Volume 1, Chapter 9. This is published on every year. And now I would ask the board whether you want to have me take questions now or we jump into Rory's and we do questions at the end. It's totally up to you.
Let's do Rory, and then we'll see if we have questions for both of you.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right, good morning. Still morning, right? So I'll be presenting the 10-year update to the Kissimmee River General Management Plan today. I'll begin with an overview of the purpose of the updated plan and its framework. Then I'll provide an overview of the Kissimmee River Management Area, summarize the habitat conditions and land management activities, discuss recreation and public access, review the land management assessment process, and conclude with next steps. The General Management Plan serves as a guiding framework for managing district-owned lands. The plan is developed in accordance with Florida statutes and includes resource inventories, summaries of land management activities, goals and objectives, and the results of an independent land management review. The updated plan establishes priorities and strategies for the next 10 years. The 7 goals depicted on this slide provide the foundation for all the land management activities conducted within the area. They guide annual work planning, resource allocation, habitat management, recreation planning, and long-term stewardship efforts. Together, they provide a balanced framework for protecting natural resources while supporting public use. The Kissimmee River Management Area encompasses approximately 47,750 acres across 5 counties. It begins just south of Lake Kissimmee along Highway 60 and runs all the way down to Lake Okeechobee. The management area is also made up of 27 unique units. The property was acquired through the Save Our Rivers program to support the Kissimmee River Restoration Project and to protect important natural resources. Today, the management area supports a diverse mix of habitats, wildlife populations, and recreational opportunities while continuing to play a critical role in Everglades, Okeechobee, and Kissimmee watersheds. The management area contains a variety of natural plant communities. Floodplain marshes dominate the landscape and serve as the ecological backbone of the system, supporting hydrologic function, wildlife habitat, and restoration objectives. Other communities include wet prairies, hardwood hammocks, cypress systems, and they all contribute to the area's ecological diversity and resilience. And that pie chart on the right shows just how the plant communities are divided in the Kissimmee River Management Area. The restored floodplain provides habitat for a variety of wildlife, including several state and federally listed species. Species such as the Everglades snail kite, wood stork, crested caracara, and gopher tortoise benefit from the diverse habitats found throughout the management area. Continued stewardship helps ensure these species and their habitats remain protected. Your district staff conduct a wide range of land management activities each year. These include prescribed burning, habitat restoration, invasive species management, oversight of cattle leases, infrastructure maintenance, and coordination with agency partners. All these activities help maintain habitat quality and support long-term restoration goals. We all know how important prescribed fire is, right? So prescribed fire remains one of our most important and cost-effective habitat management tools. Under the previous general management plan from 2015 to 2025, the district had 85 prescribed burns across more than 36,000 acres. And since 2025, staff have conducted 15 prescribed burns across 6,500 acres. These efforts help maintain native plant communities, reduce hazardous fuel loads, improve wildlife habitat, and support overall ecosystem health. The map on the left shows the fire units in the north section, and on the right, those are the individual fire units and fire history in the south section between 2015 to 2025. Invasive species management remains a critical land stewardship responsibility. Without active management, invasive plants can quickly dominate habitats, reduce biodiversity, and diminish ecological function. To address these threats, staff utilize an integrated pest management approach, or IPM, that combines mechanical, chemical, biological, and cultural control methods. And by cultural control, I mean prescribed fire and rehydration of habitats. The photo on the top right represents an area along the Kissimmee River dominated by an invasive grass called Hymenacne, or West Indian marsh grass. And the photo shows just how it's become a monoculture and how it invades and outcompetes other native vegetation. And the photo below that shows just that same area, how it looked after treatment. It's now a more diverse habitat populated with native spike rush and aquatic grasses. Early detection and rapid response, or EDRR, remains one of our most critical management strategies because finding and treating invasive species early protects restoration investments and costs far less than managing large established infestations later on. Here's another example of our invasive species management approach. This slide shows an example that highlights the benefits of active invasive species management along the Kissimmee River floodplain. And that's an airboat trail down the middle of that photo there. And that delineates the area versus the treated and untreated areas. The untreated is on the left, and it shows that area is dominated by an invasive paraggrass and supports very limited biodiversity. Following treatment on the right, native species have successfully recolonized the site, improved the habitat quality, and increasing ecological diversity. That plot on the right now has native grasses such as Coreopsis and Pontidaria growing back into the area. So that's all a very good sign. So when it comes to public recreation access, that's a very important component of the district here. The management area along the Kissimmee River provides a wide variety of outdoor recreation opportunities, including hunting, fishing, paddling, camping, hiking, and wildlife viewing. Approximately 122 miles of trails, multiple boat launches, 23 primitive campsites allow the public to experience and enjoy these lands. A key objective is ensuring recreation remains compatible with conservation and restoration goals. And I'll take this moment to say that our special use license portal opened up on June 1st, allowing people to register for campsites. Those are free permits, free licenses to the public, and you can go to the district's website and click on recreation, and it'll tell you how to apply for those special use licenses. Over the past decade, the district has continued to invest in recreational infrastructure and public access improvements. These efforts include trail maintenance and expansion improvements to campsites and facilities such as the self-contained concrete bathroom here, depicted on the left, as well as the enhanced signage depicted in the middle, and continued maintenance of boat ramps and access points. That photo on the right shows the campsite at Seaboard Marsh, where we had some volunteers do some great work on improving the access and the overall condition of that site. These improvements enhance visitor experience as well, supporting resource protection. In 2024, the Kissimmee River Blueway Trail received official state designation through DEP's Office of Greenway and Trails program. The 76.5 Blueway extends from Lake Kissimmee to Lake Okeechobee and highlights the ecological and recreational value of the restored system. The designation recognizes the Kissimmee River as one of Florida's premier paddling destinations and helps connect residents and visitors with the benefits of restoration. There are 9 primitive campsites along that stretch, and there's no charge to stay at those campsites. Successful management of the Kissimmee River depends on a strong partnership. District staff work closely with agency partners, volunteers, local government, conservation organizations, and adjacent landowners. All these partnerships support habitat management, public access, land stewardship, and recreational improvements. And I know there's a number of partners on this slide, but I'm sure I'm missing people, but I would like to just name them out right now. So we've got DEP on there, we've got U.S. Department of Agriculture, the Corps of Engineers, FWC, and again, our nonprofit and sportsman clubs are fantastic to work with, including the Florida Sportsman Conservation Association, the Kissimmee River Valley Sportsman Association, the Florida Trail Association, and the Florida Paddling Trail Association. And a big shout out to our amazing volunteers that offered up their time and effort to remove debris along the Kissimmee River floodplain. This has become like an annual event now. These photos are just a small representation of the hard work from the Kissimmee River Valley Sportsman Association. They come ready to work, they bring their friends and family, they bring heavy equipment, and we pull tons of debris out of the floodplain. So back to the update, back to the plan. This update modernizes the management plan and reflects significant progress made since the previous plan was adopted. The updated plan incorporates current resource conditions, new monitoring tools, updated management priorities, future resource needs, and stakeholder input. It essentially provides a roadmap for stewardship and management for the next decade. As part of the updated process, a land management review was conducted in November 2025 by a multidisciplinary team consisting of representatives from the district, DEP, FDACS, FWC, Okeechobee County Board of County Commissioners, a private land manager representing an adjacent landowner, and a member of the nonprofit organization. The purpose of the review was to evaluate both on-the-ground management activities and the updated land management plan. The review team evaluated three primary areas. First was the effectiveness of current land management strategies in protecting natural and recreational resources. Second, the effectiveness of field management activities in achieving those outcomes. And third, whether staffing, equipment, and funding levels are sufficient to support long-term management objectives. And this slide shows an example of one of those scoring sheets from that evaluation. The review team found the area to be well managed overall and provided positive evaluations across all management categories. Particularly strong scores were received for prescribed fire, mechanical treatment, habitat restoration, and management of listed species habitats. The review concluded that the district management activities are effectively supporting both restoration and land stewardship activities. Public engagement played an important part of this management plan. District provided the draft plan for the public to review on our main website. Comments received were very positive in support of maintaining recreational opportunities while continuing to protect habitat and restoration investments. The feedback we received helped us with updating the final plan. This slide summarizes those comments and the district responses. So, if approved today, the updated general management plan will guide management of the Kissimmee River management area for the next decade. Staff will continue implementing habitat management, prescribed fire, invasive species control, recreational management, and ecological monitoring. Adaptive management will allow us to adjust strategies as conditions change while remaining consistent with the goals of the approved plan. So with that, with that, staff requests the governing board approval of the 10-year update of the Kissimmee River Management Plan. And thank you for your time. If you have any questions, I'll be glad.
Thanks. We'll come back to questions in a second. Let's go to public comment now, and then we'll see if we have any.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'll hear from Newton Cook, followed by Caitlin Newcamp.
Newton Cook, United Waterfowlers of Florida. I rarely have problems with 3 minutes, but 10 years ago, I was on a committee that helped put together the plan that we've been running on. This is the best place in Florida for the public and the public recreation. It's an amazing place from top to bottom. And it's important because what we do north of the lake is actually more important what's been done south of the lake. Because when they channelized the Kissimmee River, it was the worst and most destructive thing ever done in Florida. And it killed Lake Okeechobee. And when you kill Lake Okeechobee, you kill everything south of Lake Okeechobee. Where do you think the phosphorus and mud and muck and everything that's in the bottom of the lake came from? It came from that channel. The water ran so fast, it just drained everything in there instead of slow through the vegetation that it had done for eons. We are paying for that today, and we will pay for it 50 years from now. It's a tragedy what it's done. All the pollution in the STAs, that pollution when it comes out of the lake, comes from north of the lake. What are we going to do? We've got to address the things north of the lake. I want to say some really good things. Our recreation area at this meeting was hikers, bikers, kind of like our rec meeting. And everyone sat there And what we were looking at is a lot of restrictions, incredible restrictions. We had all these different areas of the district there. It ended up at the old Recreation RAC meeting that we're talking about. And we solved all the problems finally, had some more problems with landowners, adjacent landowners. And the plan that we have been working on came out of that. And I noticed you had another committee meet for this one. I can only tell you, if we do not address north of the lake as aggressively as we've addressed south of the lake, you'll never have Everglades restoration. Because if the lake is not clean, all the water going out of the lake are going south. It's going right into the glades. And when it goes east and west, we really get into problems. So it's a great success story. If you duck hunt or if you just hike, it's an incredible place. Incredible. And you can park your friggin' car, close the door, and walk on it with no restrictions. It's incredible. Incredible. And very much appreciated. But we need to pay more attention north of the lake. It's crucial to solving our problems all the way to Florida Bay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. Next, we'll hear from Caitlin Newcamp, followed by Mark Perry.
Good morning, governing board members, Chair Drew, and staff. It's Caitlin Newcamp with Audubon, Florida. I want to echo Newton's second part of his comments and thank the staff for their helpful presentations on the project and the plan. So Kissimmee River restoration is one of the most significant large-scale ecological restoration projects in the country, if not the world. Backfilling 22 miles of canal, reestablishing flow through 44 miles of the historic river channel, and rehydrating more than 40 square miles of floodplain are really amazing achievements that we should celebrate. The monitoring data shows that the system is also responding, and anyone who's been out there can also see it. For example, wading bird use is up over 300%, so we love that. We also want to thank you for continued attention to exotic controls in the area, prescribed fire, and then expanding recreation opportunities. We've looked through the plan briefly, and we believe the goals and objectives are appropriate, and the framework is consistent with the original purpose of the project. We do want to flag one concern. Staffing levels, again, receive the lowest scores in the management evaluation. This comes up often, so we'd encourage the board to treat it as a priority. And then a final note, in Appendix A, there is quite a rich and detailed history of the area that was included, and we would just encourage the district to acknowledge whoever put this together because it's really valuable, and we think it's an interesting contribution. So thank you for your continued investment in the Kissimmee River, and we highly support this item. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Newcamp. Mark Perry, followed by Nyla Pipes.
Again, Governing Board, Mark Perry, thank you for this presentation. The staff did an excellent job. And you look at that 1952 hydrologic area in the Kissimmee, and you understand that it used to take about 6 or 8 months for that water to meander down in the floodplain and get to Lake Okeechobee. And after the Corps of Engineers built that C-38 canal right up the middle of the Oxbows back in 1962 to 1971, and now it took only about 3 days for that water to get down to the lake. It overdrained that whole area, of course. Immediately we realized that was the wrong thing to do. In 1978, I went back, I was up in Tallahassee visiting. I went to a little office, and there was a small group of guys who were talking about the Kissimmee River Restoration Coordinating Council. And it was like, wow, okay, we got to restore this river. And here we are. You know, the 20-year restoration efforts from 1999 to 2021 are really amazing to how we've come back and restored 44 miles of that area. Thank goodness for the Save Our Rivers programs that have put forward so much money to buy over 80,000 acres in this area, and particularly these 40,000 that are there. I've been up there with Dr. Paul Gray, of course, after the restoration efforts, and it is amazing to see it coming back, and that restored oxbows, and how the sandbars are there and the alligators are there, all the birds, those wading birds are coming back, the fish populations are coming back, and the floodplain is back. And this is an excellent example of how we manage, how we first thought we were going to manage that water by digging this big canal down the middle, and now realize, hey, nature does a really good job at that. And having those oxbows and watching that water meander back and forth through the river gives a really healthy river. As that goes around that tight turn and then the wide turn, it kind of makes this helix of that river flow, and that helix brings the bottom up to the top, and it kind of really provides a real healthy river system. And I can't tell you how really it has been beneficial to restore that section and attenuate that flow that normally would just come rushing right down into the lake. Now we've attenuated it with the floodplain and restoring that. The more we can do, the better. The management plan is excellent. Again, the staffing needs put staff into it because this is really, really important for our health of the greater Everglades ecosystem. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. Next, we'll hear from Nyla Pipes, followed by Bradley Wyrock.
Sound check.
We hear you.
Fantastic. Nyla Pipes, One Florida Foundation. As a longtime advocate for solutions north of Lake Okeechobee, it's really wonderful to see the benefits of the Kissimmee River restoration and to watch that floodplain come back to life. I know that there's still a lot of room for improvement, but what we have seen is remarkable. And to see that really gives me hope and makes the work that we do elsewhere in the system. Anytime I get sad or struggle with the work we're doing, I remind myself that if we can make the change we've made north of the lake with Kissimmee River restoration, it makes it all worth it. I wanted to also pivot and talk about public access. It's really important that we maintain public access because if people can't see a place, it's really difficult for them to understand it and want to fight for it. So I want to applaud you for continuing to work with organizations like Florida Sportsmen's Conservation Association and the Kissimmee River Valley Sportsman Association and all the airboat clubs and all of that. Because again, if we can't see it, why do we care about it? And I know that that's really simple, but it's the way people operate. It's important to keep those traditional uses alive, whether it's hunting and fishing or airboating and in appropriate places, buggy riding. These are things that make old Florida, and we have so little of it left. And I think it's a lot of why people are here. So I just wanted to thank you for continuing to work with those volunteer organizations. The work they do is amazing. If you ever get an opportunity, go out there, join them for a work day or two. You'll be hooked, I promise. So thank you for all of your hard work on this. I don't really have anything else to say other than let's just keep going.
Thank you, Ms. Pipes. Next, we'll hear from Bradley Wyrock. Please unmute your mic, Mr. Wyrock.
There we go. Can you hear me?
We hear you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Governing Board, Executive Director Bartlett. I'd like to echo Newton Cook's remarks a minute ago. A couple of months ago, we were at the Recreational Forum, and we continue to get great updates on Lake Okeechobee and its progress. Back in the early part of May, I was in a meeting with our partners at FWC, talking about improving Lake Kissimmee and muck reduction and these things. You know, Newton had a great point. We've spent hundreds of millions of dollars, if not over that, on Lake Okeechobee, the Everglades. You will never get these water systems cleaned up until you go to the source. I used the analogy the last time I was in that room that if water's flowing down the wall from the top to the bottom, we can mop the bottom all we want. But until you go to the source, you get it stopped. This isn't going to quit. And until we come up north of the Kissimmee chain of lakes and up into Orange and Osceola, where we have the amount of pollutants that come from subdivisions, the amount of fertilizing golf courses, septic tanks, we're never going to clean that lake up. As a third generation stakeholder up here, landowner, on behalf of the sportsmen up here, and I will always advocate for KCOL. But folks, until we get this done and come north, you can keep mopping up all you want, but you know what's going to continue to flow downhill. And I appreciate Mr. Cook's comments. Again, thank him for all his years of leading the Recreational Forum. It's a very, very important forum. And thank you all for the work that you do to keep these Zoom meetings going. Many of us, it's a 6-hour round trip. We'll be down on the 22nd, but it's a considerable drive, and these Zoom meetings are so important. But we appreciate all your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wyrock. Mr. Chairman, we have no additional comments on this item.
Well, thank you all very much for your comments, and thanks to Mr. Feeney and Dr. Welch for the great presentations. We've got a resolution. Before we take that up, are there any comments or questions for either of the presenters? Mr. Bergeron?
This has got to be one of the greatest restorations in the history of America. And the plan is put together so well by our staff to not only have we restored a historical river, which I'm telling my age when I say this, but I seen it when it was natural. My great grandparents are buried on a little cemetery right there on, you probably know where it's at, Ben. They fished on the lake back before the turn of the century, and right by Taylor Creek on the rim, and I can remember seeing this beautiful, and it just shows you what we can do. I know we can send someone to the moon in a rocket ship, but we can save our quality of life in Florida, our natural resources. And the greatest thing about this plan, and I just have to compliment our staff, is the sustainable access and enjoyment to the public as well. And so I'm just amazed at being able to restore this beautiful river, and what a great plan. I want to compliment our staff that's allowing the public to enjoy our natural resources. Sustainable is the key. Sustainable access and enjoyment. And what a great accomplishment.
Colonel Roman?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a couple of questions. I can begin with Dr. Welch. It's been a long time since we've been out on the Kissimmee River together and to look at the initial inundation of the floodplain. One of the terms that I'd like to get a little clarification on, Zach, is what does success look like when we talk about headwaters revitalization?
Are you talking about success in the headwaters lakes or the river, or I can talk about both?
Well, the definition of when you talk about the headwaters revitalization schedule, what you're referring to.
Okay, so we've bought the real estate around those headwater lakes, Lakes Kissimmee, Cypress, Ashenhaw, gives us the additional storage once we adopt a new schedule to be more judicious about how we trickle that down to the river. So success is trying to maximize the amount of time we get what we call moderate flows out of S65A to where we have enough flow to get over the riverbank onto the floodplain, but we don't have to, if we have a lower flood control line in those lakes, we have to ramp up to flood control discharges quite frequently, which means a big flow down the river. We inundate the floodplain, but we do it really quickly, and then we get back below the zone A line, and then we cut down flows. And so the floodplain just has this big flood, dry out, big flood, dry out. Mm-hmm. When we have more storage in those headwater lakes, we could be more judicious with those flows. We can try and do moderate flows for longer periods of time. Mostly we're trying to inundate that floodplain well into the dry season instead of ending where we do now in the first month or two after the dry season starts. We can't provide wading bird nesting habitat or snail-kite nesting habitat on a dry floodplain in the wading bird season or in the nesting season. we can't provide bass spawning in the habitat if it's dry during spawning season. So the longer we can extend those inundation events, like it used to do historically, into the dry season, that's what we're looking for in terms of success with the Headwaters revitalization schedule. So there's 3 alternatives right now. We're down to, you know, which one of those is going to be selected and optimized. That's the Corps leading that process. On the Kissimmee Channel Lakes themselves, those headwater lakes, we also want to see benefits there. So this is supposed to be a balanced solution or outcome from this HRS project. By allowing stages to get a little higher in those lakes, we expect to see improvements in those upper elevation marshes. Some of these marshes are just barely connected to the lake systems, and only at high pool stages do they get that connectivity. Areas like Gardner Cobb Marsh, we expect to see big improvements. So the lakes themselves, through a little increased variability and through additional stages at times during wet periods, we expect to see improvements there as well. So that would be successful, if we can see improvements in upper littoral zone health in the lakes, and then more closely mimicking those longer periods of inundation on the floodplain in the river.
And you already addressed my other question, which was the duration, what we're going for there. And we're going for it longer into the dry season.
Yeah, so one of the targets we use for that is our broadleaf marsh metric. So if you'll remember that community, vegetation community slide with all the pinks, a lot of that's a broadleaf marsh community, like pickerelweed, flag, sagittaria, things that want to be wet for longer. We use a target of about 210 days of inundation per year, and we're well short of that right now. So we want to get closer to that. Now, honestly, we probably aren't going to have the storage upstream to meet those metrics exactly, but we want to get a lot closer. So we want to see more of that floodplain convert to a broadleaf marsh instead of these shorter hydroperiod communities, things that are dominated by hymenacne or parrotgrass or limpo grass and willow.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to getting out there again with you soon.
Anytime,
so that'll
let me
be
know.
great. My next question is for Rory. Rory, I enjoyed your presentation, and I really enjoyed the fact that you highlighted the extensive effort that the volunteers are doing out there to move trash.
Mm-hmm.
My question for you is, why do we have so much debris out there? And what can we do is there a policy or something that we need to do to minimize that?
This is debris that goes back decades. These are old farm fences, cattle fences. These are perhaps some stuff that fell off of a boat from many years ago. I think that that type of activity is really minimized now. People are more cognizant of what they're leaving, what footprints are leaving in the environment now. But what we're dealing with now is just the old stuff.
Okay.
The old culverts, the old fence material, but it adds up. There's a lot out there.
A couple of the public commenters talked about additional staff or management, or they highlighted that as something that came up during the public comment. What exactly are they referring to?
I think they are referring to our current staffing levels within the district, but we're still able to achieve our goals by tapping into those resources that I put on that screen. So we utilize volunteers, we utilize other agencies like FWC, forestry, to still accomplish those goals. Of course, more staff, more funding, more work can get done, but we're still able to get the goals and objectives achieved.
And that's in the land management side,
Correct.
As far as maintenance, the invasives, the prescribed burns, just like we have discussed in several other locations throughout the district.
And we also lean on field station staff and other departments within Zach's group as well to do a lot of the monitoring and on-the-ground work. So we all work together to still accomplish those goals.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mr. Butler.
Mr. Rory, hold on. So to begin with, I want to also echo my thank yous to all of our clubs, sportsman clubs that have helped to maintain this area and volunteer work. It's just amazing to see the volunteerism that goes in to this public land. And they'll tell you, part of it is that for for them, it's also they get to work hand in hand with the district and keep a good open line of communication. It works both ways. But it just amazes me between the Sportsman Association and the airboaters how much goes in. So I want to echo that and thank you. I also want to point out, one of the important tools that's in this management plan when it comes to managing our land is the cattle. Cattle grazing is an important part of this management plan. It's been several bullet points and in several spots in it. When it comes to parral grass and limpo grass, you really want to get rid of it, you stock that thing full of cows, and they will nub that out. But you really want to get rid of it, you put some horses on there. But I don't know if you get anybody to do that. But I wanted to acknowledge that and thank the district. I mean, that's a revenue generator when it comes to land management rather than expense. So it certainly helps. Finally, I want to echo, yes, Caitlin, that Appendix A, that is a wealth of knowledge. If you haven't looked at it, it's kind of like one of Mr. Bergeron's talks or books or whatever. I noted that, and it is, you want some history, and it goes back. I mean, that's old history. I mean, it goes back to the steamboats and my great-grandfather, I think I had a great-grandmother that helped out with the school board, and that's how she would travel back and forth to Kissimmee. The school board for Okeechobee would go by steamboat and up and down the river, and that was the preferred mode of transportation. So, and that's referenced in there. So I think the history is just rich with this area. But it is exciting to see how the rivers come along. I'm partial. If you really want to get out and see some pretty area, go to that segment 4, that bottom end of the river restoration, and just to see those white sandy beaches and the big cypress trees. It is to me, that's kind of partial. That's a pretty area. Of course, that's my neck of the woods too. But the whole thing's pretty. Yeah. It is diverse. It's a diverse landscape. But no, I appreciate the work that's gone in the management plan and all the collaborators, the district, your staff that put this together. But everybody that has provided input. Good, solid plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the 10-year update of the Kissimmee River Management Area Plan.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call that question. Mr. Bergeron?
Yes.
I'm going to vote yes. Colonel Roman?
Yes.
Mr. Butler?
Yes.
Mr. Hurley?
Yes.
Mr. Martinez?
Yes.
Mr. Spotswood?
Yes.
Great. That passes unanimously. We'll move now to technical reports with Mr. Mitnick and Dr. Armstrong.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Taking a look so far back at the month of May for how much rainfall, you can see right about average rainfall throughout the month. So far, month of June is just getting into it. Still got a ways to go. We'll see how the rest of the month plays out there. But since we last met, the district meteorologist called the start of the wet season. You heard that a little bit earlier in the meeting today. But the day that they chose as the start of the wet season was actually the day we met for the board meeting last month, May 14th. So you've started the wet season. But so far for the wet season, although it's only been, roughly a month into it, we're about 73% of average, so just a little bit less than average, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later on in the presentation. But looking at the levels up in the upper chain, sticking with the Kissimmee River theme, you can see there in East Lake we got down to its winter pool, but the lake has continued to receding because there hasn't been much rain since the last event a couple weeks ago. Similar story down there in West Lake, it's continuing to recede. So all of those water control structures are now closed, and we're holding up that water up in those lakes now that we've reached the bottom for their summer pools there. Lake Kissimmee, we're continuing to deliver water down the river. those flows are down at the 300 cubic feet per second coming out of S65A as the lake has continued to drop with that absence of rainfall over the last couple of days, and now that the upper chain of lakes have stopped discharging and moving that water down into Kissimmee, Cypress, and Hatchenhall. As we'll continue to monitor, but as the lake would drop below this 49 feet under increment 1 schedule, then those flows would reduce a little bit more. But like I said, we'll continue to monitor that, and hopefully now that we are in the wet season, we'll have a little bit more rain in that basin to provide and sustain some of those flows into the future. With that.
So Dr. Welsh, can y'all hear me? Dr. Welsh set me up really well for talking about Kissimmee and why I present these slides every month. So this is what the floodplain is looking like currently, which is similar to what it looked like a month ago, and actually similar to what it looked like a year ago, although a year ago was a little wetter. And as you can see, we're not inundating the floodplain at this point, and so the targets where we were looking for greater inundation for those broadleaf marshes, we're not there yet. And the reason for that, as Dr. Welsh explained, was we need overbank flow, and that occurs at 1400 CFS, and we have been around 300 since back in November. So it's going to be a while before we're able to reflood that floodplain in order to assist with the vegetation grow-in that we've been looking for. And also, as Dr. Welsh explained, that why I keep presenting the dissolved oxygen graph, and that is important for our fish and the aquatic habitat, and he explained that eloquently. So I'll move on from that to the pretty picture of a wildfire that we had. That was at the end of May. It was 340 acres of wildfire that the FWC let burn because it was important for marsh health, and that area should come back really nicely. And a few weeks prior to that, there was a smaller burn in the same general area of about 60 acres. So that area got its prescribed burn all by itself.
So then looking at how water's moved around the northern portion of the system, you can see there hasn't been a whole lot of inflows into Lake Okeechobee because of some of the rains on the northern side of the district. Again, I'll speak to that later on when we talk about the future forecasts. But over on the east coast, you haven't had any water discharge from the C44 basin or Lake Okeechobee going to the St. Lucie estuary. Just a small amount of water coming out of C23-24 that has been aided by what Drew touched on during the employee recognitions in that team of the month, getting that project done for C23-24 estuary diversion canal coming down and redistributing that water, trying to move it out of the middle estuary and provide a better flow into the estuary itself. Just a little over 6,000 acre feet up around C25 Fort Pierce area going to the Indian River Lagoon, and then over on the west coast just slightly less than 30,000 acre feet going to the Caloosahatchee estuary, and 10,000 of that having originated back here in Lake Okeechobee. Again, very early in the wet season. It's only about a month old, so you'll start to hopefully see these numbers increasing as we go into the wet season rain. Looking at Lake Okeechobee, I'll just jump to this one where you can see the 4-panel view. Down here in the bottom corner is the June projection, following that 50% line coming out. You can see it's slightly moved up from the previous projection back in May and is a little bit more consistent with what we were talking about back in April. But still just moving. The lake has been relatively flat over the past month, just sort of bumping around. It had a small decrease, but for the most part relatively flat, sitting just above 11 feet. And so far since this projection was done, we're still tracking really close into that 50th percent line. So it would be just skirting the water shortage management ban as we go deeper into the wet season. You'll recall last month I talked about the tail end out here and what those forecasts hold for above average dry season, but obviously we'll wait and see how that plays out over the next several months.
And taking a look at the lake for May, With the start of the wet season, we actually had higher rain than we had evapotranspiration for the first time in a long time. And the rainfall was the dominant inflow into the lake. In total, we had 180 acre feet coming into the lake and 185,000 acre feet coming out of the lake. With the rainfall, however, the change in stage did not change that much due to the dry marsh. So we actually lost stage of a little less than half a foot. This is what that stage looks like today. We're about a third of a foot below the ecological envelope and about a little over a half a foot above water storage management band. And you can see on the graph here, the western marsh is fairly dry, and we believe that's where most of the rainfall was into the marsh soil over there, absorbing that. And we are continuing to see that the wading birds are using this area. And this is the latest survey for the wading birds, was June 4th. You are starting to see there is a decline in their usage, but this is expected. It's part of the seasonal decline as birds finish with their reproductive state. We are waiting for the UF report on nesting success. However, we are expecting that nesting was much lower than it has been in the past. Looking at water quality, the chlorophyll numbers are looking fairly good. There was a slight drop in both the near shore and out in the middle of the lake compared to previous. These last dates are from May 27th, so you can see how they compare to the previous. We did see a fairly precipitous drop in the DIN in the near shore, and that is most likely due to the regrowth of the SAV in the near shore area. And we did not see any similar drop out in the middle of the lake, most likely due to more turbid conditions, so there's no algae out there. And last but not least, we did see this little tiny uptick in turbidity, and it was mostly driven from sites in the northern area, and we think that might actually be a side effect of all the muck removal that we're seeing up there. Those projects might have peaked up the turbidity just a touch. So looking at algae across the lake, we are starting to see a little bit broader of a satellite imagery than what we've had in the past. However, it's still primarily located up on the northwest shore where it has been. When staff go out to take samples, they are claiming to not see any visible algae in the water, so it is highly likely that this signal is coming from picoplankton, which is microscopic, and that's why they're not seeing it. However, those algae numbers are corresponding to our chlorophyll numbers, where you can see that our red dots and our chlorophyll numbers and our green dots, or blue dots, are mostly up here, indicating that the satellite and the grab samples are corresponding with each other. Good news is that we're not seeing a lot of toxin production on the lake. There was very little, actually no microcystin toxin reported for this past period, and only 2 samples had cylindrospomopsin, and those were both below the recreational levels. And lastly, the dominant taxon that we're seeing is mostly a mixed community, although there are a few areas where it is microcystin dominated, but mostly it's a mixed condition. And lastly, as Drew pointed out, we did do some planting near the Clewiston area. We had some Kissimmee grass, bulrush, and pondweed that went out there. And this is what that looked like. And also the pondweed planting was actually sponsored by a FDEP contract that normally goes towards seagrass. So that was a coup on our part to get some funding for SAV restoration with that fund. Now moving over to the estuaries in the St. Lucie, we have gotten very little flow since that April rainfall back in on the 7th. Total flow to the estuary is 253 CFS over the last week. We did see a little bit of the salinity gradient moving up towards the middle estuary. But for the site at US 1 Bridge, where we are monitoring for oysters, it has pretty much stayed in the optimum range since that April rainfall event. The oysters are starting to spawn, and we have seen some spat recruitment. Our last numbers were collected from May 6th. So these numbers here, the last bar represents mostly April's spat settlement conditions, and we are looking forward to seeing more spat settle throughout the fall. Moving over to the Caloosahatchee, again, we haven't seen a lot of flow from that April rainfall. Total flow into the estuary the past week was 488 CFS, with 73 of that coming from Lake Okeechobee. The salinity gradient throughout the estuary is pretty much the same as it was last month. And you can see in the lower estuary, the salinities at the three sites, Cape Coral, Shell Point, and Sanibel, are pretty much where they have been all month. The oyster recruitment on the Caloosahatchee side has been going pretty well, especially at Bird Island. The last number was collected on May 12th, so that actually reflects mid-October to mid-May conditions. And again, we're expecting to see these types of numbers for the remainder of the season through the fall. And looking at the flows that we've seen, we are below the minimum flow and level and have been since early May. The salinities in the areas in the upper part of the estuary have been a little bit more variable there, but however, they remain in the damaging range at Fort Myers and in the optimum range at Val I-75 and S-79.
So then looking at how water has moved around the southern portion of the system, you can see there hasn't been a whole lot of inflows into the conservation areas themselves due to some of that lack of the rainfall just immediately south of Lake Okeechobee, just over 30,000 acre feet so far. However, if you look at the lower East Coast there, we've gotten a decent amount of flow coming off from those rains from the lower East Coast, just over 154,000 acre feet. So 154,000 acre feet, to put that into perspective, that's roughly a third of a foot back on Lake Okeechobee. A little bit farther south, all the rains that have been falling over the conservation areas in the central Everglades, they're continuing to absorb that water. So there hasn't been a whole lot of flow. The Tamiami Trail flow formula is just a little bit over, I think, 200 CFS, 212 CFS right now is what it's calling for because of the stages in the conservation area. So there's only been a little bit less than 10,000 acre feet, inclusive of some of that return seepage over here that have been moved down into Everglades National Park. Looking at the stormwater treatment areas, the story remains the same. Still generating not that much runoff coming out of the basin, so only about 24,000 acre feet have been processed and treated through the stormwater treatment areas.
So as Mr. Mitnick said, we've had 24,000 acre feet coming into the STAs since the start of the water year, and about a little over 6,000 of that has come from the lake. And currently the stages within the STAs are at or slightly above target stage. For the flows, they coming into the STAs, most of those went to 3-4. I wanted to draw your attention to 5-6 over here. We had very little flow in that basin and very little flow moving through. It is so low, in fact, that it is below evaluation. So we won't have numbers I'll have numbers for you next month, most likely, assuming that we get some water over there. But for this month, the flows are just too low to actually be able to evaluate them properly. Because of that, the numbers in the flow-weighted concentrations also are not able to be evaluated. We weren't able to calculate, and I will go through what that calculation looks like in just a bit to explain how we get those concentrations. I also wanted to point out STA 1 West. We are looking at some data issues that we had with one of our compliance sites. There's some divergence between our auto sampler and our grab sample that we are investigating. So once those numbers get understood better, we will report out on those that site. So this is what FTA 5.6 looks like. We are starting to even dry out in Flowway 1. In this area, Flowway 4 and 5 still remain very dry. This is why we're not able to really report out flow. There's not a lot of flow going through there. The flows in the other, or the flowways in the other areas are staying fairly well hydrated. STA 1 East Central Flowway is still offline. We are rehydrating that for vegetation grow-in, and that should be online later in next dry season. And also Flowway, the Eastern Flowway of 1 West is also offline right now for vegetation management activities. So, as promised, I will go through a little bit of a deeper dive into how we do our water quality sampling for the STAs. Each of our compliance points is measured using what's called an auto sampler. And that's what this little carousel thing is right here. It is filled with 24 bottles that are on a carousel that will spin based on how much water is being collected. So each auto sampler has a computer that's associated with its top. It gets programmed to take a sample every time a certain volume of water goes through the structure. So the structure and the auto sampler talk to each other through the SCADA system, and when a certain flow level goes through there, it triggers a sample, and a 100 milliliter sample will be taken and deposited into that bottle. That will happen 8 times for a bottle, and then the carousel will spin to the next bottle. So through the course of the week, as flow goes through there, small micro samples are taken, and then the tech goes out there, collects all the bottles, and then composites all the samples into one sample that then goes back to the lab for analysis. So it's a flow-weighted composite sample averaging over the week. So we catch all of the conditions of what was flowing out through the STA. We also take a grab sample at the same time when the technician is out there. And that grab sample is used as a backup in case there is any issue with any of the auto sampler samples. We sometimes find that we've picked up some turbidity because the strainer got too close to the bottom. It may have overflowed because there was a lot more flow than we had anticipated. So there are issues with the water, auto sampler samples upon occasion, so we always take a grab sample as a backup. So here is how we do our flow-weighted mean concentrations, and this is appropriate for both the inflow compliance points as well as the outflow compliance points. And the numbers here are based on our annual flow-weighted mean concentration, which is what we are evaluated on, but the numbers that I present on a monthly basis, those are so for the numbers that I presented this time, that was 38 days. It was May 1 to June 7th. So we will modify the calculation, but for the annual flow-weighted mean, it's 365 days. So let me walk you through how we go through that. So our first step is to calculate the daily load. So we get the daily load from the structure, and we multiply that by the TP concentration that was measured in that auto sampler in the flow proportion mean, or the grab sample if we need to use the backup. And from that, we get the daily TP load. Then step 2 is we add all of those loads up, and that will be from each compliance sample. So some of our STAs have multiple compliance locations, so all of those will get summed up together, as well as all of the flows will get summed up, and then we divide the TP loads by the flows, and that gives us our flow-weighted mean concentration. So here are our compliance points. All of the ones circled in red are our outflow compliance points. So each one is different. So for STA 1 East, for example, it has one outflow compliance point. I also wanted to draw your attention to these little triangles. Those are the inflow compliance points. So, and STA 1 West has 3. There's 2 that are right here, and then there's 1 in expansion 1. STA has 2 in this red circle here for outflow. STA 3-4 has quite a few, and then you see, I don't even want to count how many compliance points there are for 5-6. So all of those will get added together to calculate one number that we present to you on the monthly basis, and that was using that flow weight concentration calculation. So now moving on to the Everglades, we are still looking at fairly dry conditions. We've got drier conditions in Water Conservation Area 1 in the north area, and in Water Conservation Area 2, we were letting some flow go through there, so you're starting to see a drying pattern here that we were actually looking for to encourage wading bird usage in that area. Conservation Area 3A remains fairly dry, although you are starting to see a little bit of rehydration. Biscayne Bay, Big Cypress is still very dry. And then the park is actually starting to rehydrate a little bit, and especially Taylor Slough, you can see that we're pretty wet down there. And as far as comparison to our 20-year average, Conservation Area 1 is in the 50th percentile. Big Cypress is below average, as it has been, as so is 3A and 3B, still are in the 10th percentile as they have been. And Everglades National Park is dry in the north and wet in the south. So not much has changed here regarding the different sites within Conservation Area 1 and 2A. We are seeing some general decline in stage except for Water Conservation Area 1, but it is in the middle of its interquartile range. For Site 4F, we are at the bottom of the interquartile range, just above the 10th percentile, and for Site 17, we're in the middle of the interquartile range. Now, moving down into 3A, conditions have not really improved. We continue to see a fairly big decline, and mostly they're below ground. Except for this small reversal that we had here at Site 64, conditions have remained below ground, and we're now approaching below ground for that area as well. You can see on the right, there's a picture from Dr. Mark Cook from the end of May. This is the area in the south. It's hard to see in this picture, but if you look really closely, there are a lot of alligator holes, and it really points to the importance that alligators play on the landscape for creating refugia for other animals and maintaining some water on the landscape surface. And with the rains that Mr. Mitnick pointed out in the area, we are seeing some slight improvement in the bird habitat area in 3A. We still have a small nesting colony up here of white ibis and herons in Conservation Area 1. And we are seeing this improved area here for habitat for wading birds in 3A. And then lastly, I wanted to bring some good news to you about roseate spoonbills. We are seeing an increase in their nesting numbers down in Florida Bay. He saw 244 nests versus some lower numbers we had last year, 95 nests, and the year prior, 152 nests. So we're seeing a nice rebound for them down in Florida Bay. And lastly, the salinity in Florida Bay has declined just a touch over the past month. Taylor Slough, as I pointed out, is a little bit wetter. It rose by about 0.4 feet. And so with the greater connectivity with Taylor Slough, we're seeing some of the salinities drop. The central and western portions of the bay are still at or slightly above the hypersalinity range, but all of the areas are within their interquartile range.
So jumping back up to Conservation Area 1 up here in the upper left-hand side, right now, today there are no inflows and there are no outflows out of Area 1. It's proceeding gradually, just driven by these rains up above here. And we'll see what the forecast brings for the remaining portions of the week and the rest of the month. Down at Area 2, the Corps of Engineers had opened up the S11 structures to move some of that water that is in 2A down into 3A. So we implemented some of that operations over the past month. We're continuing to move water and flowing through the S7 structure and moving it off to the west this way as much as we can. However, you can see with this green line here, there was a precipitous drop in the S11B headwaters as we started utilizing the S11s to move some of that water. So the S11s are now closed today. I think they closed actually yesterday or the day before. So it's continuing just to recede gradually. And you saw Cassandra's presentation just a couple slides ago about that drying front coming down Area 2A. For Area 3, a similar story. It's gotten some rains, but overall the 3-gauge average has been relatively steady. The green line there is the floor elevation. It has also started to drop again, and as a result, the Tamiami Trail flow formula has been reducing over time, but we're still continuing to deliver those flows through a combination of 12CD and, of course, the 333 structure over here. For the South Dade conveyance system, it's pretty much just been floating along on its own, driven by that local rainfall that has been occurring down there. We're no longer moving water out of the conservation area and down the South Dade conveyance system. So just local basin rainfall and runoff are continuing to maintain South Dade conveyance system. With all of that being said, the U.S. Drought Monitor still is showing some of those extreme drought areas coming down the spine of the district and moving off towards the west coast as you go up into the panhandle of Florida. So we're not completely out of a drought situation based on the U.S. Drought Monitor. We're still waiting for those wet season rains to kick up in earnest, so to speak. Which, going to hurricane season, as we've talked about in previous months, with an El Nino predicted going throughout the rest of this wet season and into the upcoming dry season, that has an effect of suppressing hurricane or tropical activity in our neck of the woods. But overall, you can see the forecasted number of storms is reduced from last year, from the 17 down to the 13. But as always, everybody says it's only one that can ruin your day, or the chairman knows it's two that can ruin your day. So what does the Climate Prediction Center call for? Again, we're just looking at equal chances going through the latter part of the wet season. And then as it starts to get into the beginning of the dry season and into the late dry seasons, where you start seeing some of that El Nino effect, and you likely above normal rainfall as we get into the beginning of 2027. So that's what we're looking forward to, and water levels right now are reflective of that, and a lot of the forecasts, especially on Lake Okeechobee, are reflective of that above average dry season as we get past Christmas time, so to speak. But what I wanted to point out here, this is the graphic for the last 7 days of rainfall across the district, and it's really indicative of what we've seen over the last month and how water levels have responded over the last month. And it's really a tale of two districts. You've got the southern portion of the district down here that's gotten a decent amount of rain, and that's that 154,000 acre feet of runoff that you saw on the lower East Coast. But up north of Lake Okeechobee, the northern portions of the district, haven't been a whole lot of rain, a lot of dryness up there, and that's why Lake Okeechobee has sort of just been bumping along. Small decrease in stages in the lake, but for the most part, not a whole lot of inflows as you see these very dry basins to the north of the lake. We've seen that in past years, the tale of two districts, where you have a very southern half of the district is very wet and a lot of rainfall, but the northern half doesn't get a whole lot of precipitation and a whole lot of runoff. But hopefully that starts to change, and you start generating some of that runoff down the Kissimmee River Basin, and we start seeing Lake Okeechobee levels start increasing as we go deeper into the wet season. Which all of that will lead to, you know, where do you exit the wet season, and how much water do you have to deal with and manage the overall system as we go through the dry season. But with that, for the next couple days anyway, district meteorologists are predicting somewhere in average or slightly below average rainfall throughout the district. You can see it starts to pick up here into the weekend and then a little bit more again as we get out into the beginning of next week. With that, Mr. Chair, I'll turn it back to you.
Well, thank you both. Anyone questions or comments? Colonel?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say, Dr. Armstrong, thank you for that slide number 28. I know John addressed it last meeting when I had asked a question, but it's great to see a picture's worth 1,000 words, and appreciate the formula also. Maybe next meeting we could do a little calculation and plug some numbers in from one of the STAs as an example, and that would be very helpful. But thank you for that. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. I also want to let you know that Dr. Welsh will be presenting next month. I will be on vacation, so if we could pause that calculation until the following when I return, so that I don't have to put him through that.
Yeah, that'll be fine.
All right, thank
that'll be
you.
great because it'll bring it to reality, and I think that'll be helpful. Thank you.
Mr. Butler?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kind of along that same line there, Ms. Cassandra, when we're looking at, it was interesting to look at kind of the first month, or the first, how many days, 36 days, is that what you said? The flow weighted mean. How does what's the kind of the annual trend look like when we're looking at those flow weighted means? I mean, do we see, like, where we see, like, north of the lake, we see a spring flush? I mean, of course, we haven't got the rains yet. But what are those trends? What should we expect to kind of see?
So you're spot on with the first rains. We do tend to have higher concentrations with that, but as we get more flow coming through the STAs, they drop down quite a bit. Then during the dry season, they kind of bump along primarily because there's not very much flow going on. So the impact of inflows and concentrations is a lot less. So you start off a little high and it drops down to the end of the wet season, and then it just kind of stays there.
Okay, all right. I mean, I was just kind of watching that. I know that the end of the year or the end of the water year is the key there. But look like already we got 4 of the 5 STAs performing well.
Yes, sir, we do.
So and then 5, 6. This is just Mother Nature at work. I don't know if there's anything else we can do, correct, John or Cassandra? No other water we can get in there to help vegetation, right?
Yeah, like we talked about before in the past, we're trying some new operations there, holding a little bit water back in those southern cells and all those red areas that you see on Cassandra's graphic. And again, this is the first year that the C-139 FEB will be in its full operation. So we're very excited about bringing that new facility online to help manage the issues that are challenging STA 5.6.
So is the C-139 FEB and the C-43 reservoir both sort of in the same situation where they're both ready to go, but we just don't have enough water to make them operational to give us as much help as we need?
Correct. I mean, for C-139, it's the runoff. There hasn't been any runoff generated. For C-43, we have, when there is sufficient runoff coming down the Caloosahatchee River, we do start capturing that, and we're doing the initial fill of the reservoir. So as the rains begin, we'll start pulling more of that water off the river and into the reservoir.
Mr. Bergeron?
I think as far as the environment's concerned, a lot of this dry season is beneficiary to the environment. To have a wet season and a dry season, very seldom do we get a dry season. Yeah, So I think from the environment side, you've got some positive things going on with a dry spell. Of course, concerns in water supply is the opposite side of all of this. But I think from the environmental side, we're getting some cleansing of the wetlands and the ground's cracking, aerating, long as there's moisture in the muck and we don't have muck fires and stuff of that nature. But I think the environment's benefiting. What's your thought on that, John?
I would agree. I mean, Cassandra can correct me if I'm wrong, but you can't have either one of those extremes, too wet, too dry. Yeah. But having the dichotomy between both is what nature intended.
Yeah. Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you both. Appreciate it. Katie? We'll do the financial report now with Ms. Heater.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
The monthly financial report is through April 30th. We've collected through April $865 million in new revenue, and we expended $684 million. This was a large month in revenue collections. We collected $144 million in additional revenue between March and April. $20 million of that is from ad valorem, $116 million from intergovernmental, and $8 million in investment earnings, permit fees, and leases. The revenue collected in the amount of $865 million comprises of $387 million from intergovernmental, $439 million or 95% from ad valorem collections, with the remaining $39 million from invested funds, license, permits, and fees. We are at 44.7% collection of revenues. In comparison to this time last year, we're 1% higher, so we're pretty much on trend. And that dollar value is $5.6 million, so we're $5.6 million higher in collections and revenues. Your recurring revenues, though, just to note, are at 91%, which is on trend as well. The intergovernmental revenues is what kind of drags that percentage down, and as you know, that's based on expenditures and invoicing, as well as it's 71% of your budget. So, the average collection of revenues per month is about $124 million. This time last year it was $123. So, expenditure highlights: $684 million is made up of $33 million or 5%. In the science arena, $14 million or 2% in regulation, $605 million or 88% for Everglades and O&M, $31 million or 5% administration and outreach. On average, we're spending about $98 million per month, and this time last year we were spending $92 million per month, and we're 71% obligated. So that concludes my monthly financial report. But I do have an additional report I would, just like to give you some highlights on. So the fiscal year 2024-25 annual comprehensive financial report and related audit reports have been completed by the district's independent external auditors, CPAs. I am happy to report that the independent external auditors identified no findings related to the district's financial statements, federal awards, state financial assistance programs, or internal controls. The auditors also concluded that the district complied in all material respects with applicable federal and state requirements. The audit included approximately $40 million in federal award expenditures and $837 million in state financial assistance expenditures. No findings were reported, and all of the 3 prior year findings were successfully addressed and were not repeated. The auditors also examined the district's compliance with Section 218, 415 Florida statutes and concluded that the district complied in all material respects with those requirements. These results demonstrate the district's commitment to sound financial stewardship, accountability, and transparency, and provide assurance to taxpayers, stakeholders, and funding partners that the public that resources are being managed responsibly, effectively, in accordance with applicable requirements. Some takeaways: a clean audit, no financial statement findings, no internal control deficiencies, and then the federal and state awards that were administered, no findings, and all prior year findings were resolved. The financial report may be found on the district's website under Who We Are, Budget and Finance Reports, and then you scroll down to the annual comprehensive financial reports. And that concludes my report.
Boy, congratulations. That's fantastic. and thank your staff. I know it's a lot of work. I love having no findings.
Yeah.
That's wonderful, and as does Drew, I'm sure. But it's not easy, and I know it's a lot of work, and there's a lot of money that passes through this place, both federal and state. And there's a lot of strings tied to it. So congratulations on.
Thank you,
on everything.
and I appreciate staff as well, and congratulate them. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Anyone have any questions or comments other than thanks.
Sorry.
We'll go to the final public comment, if there is any.
We do, Mr. Chairman. We'll begin with Ben Olson, followed by Mark Perry.
Hello again. A couple weeks back, I learned a very fascinating fact. I'm in a pilot program run by the FWC to assist in tracking Florida Panthers via trail cam. From December 1 to February 28 across the state, in this program, 30 separate Panthers were recorded. 7 of those were on Olson Ranch. More to the point, 7 were on the northeast portion of Olson Ranch where I have cameras. Just to clarify, that isn't 7 videos, that's 7 different cats across dozens of videos, including the mom and twin kittens that were born on Olson Ranch just over 2 years ago. I was sitting reading a book on my porch Christmas Eve as one walked through the yard in the middle of the day. As I was writing this yesterday morning, I recorded one in our pole barn in front of our Humvee on security camera. Don't let me leave without showing you. I have never seen a collared cat on our property. Our Panthers are as wild Florida gets, including the kittens that are raised that we get to watch grow up. It's not unique to my land. All of my neighbors' lands in the area are just as pristine and rich with abundant and endangered wildlife. It's who I fight for. In what little free time I have, I've been also trying to facilitate some kind of arrangement between the FWC and the other landowners in the West Feeder Basin and the L28 Gap to get Panther footage from everybody recorded. Again, just like with the idea for the land steward meetings, every landowner I've spoken to so far is fully on board with this idea. Common goals are what bring us all together. There isn't a single private landowner in the work footprint that doesn't have deep love for their land and the wildlife on it. It's why we live where we do. It's an extension of ourselves and our families. I want to thank you. When all this started, admittedly, I was a little spiteful of how our properties were targeted. I was resentful that for the rest of my life, it will probably be very political. I wanted to be left alone on my property. But something great has come about because of WERP and all the aspects surrounding it. And to explain that, I have to give you a very brief history lesson. You see, there's a big sinkhole in the West Feeder Basin known as Rocky Lake. Someday I'm going to chuck a submersible drone into it to see how far down it goes. But growing up, I would hear stories from my mom and my aunt and uncles about an annual party that was held at Rocky Lake in which all of the landowners would gather to celebrate together. All the families in the area were invited, and it didn't matter if you were showing up in a broken down truck or a helicopter, everybody partied together. That fizzled out at some point decades ago. I want to thank you because for the first time in about 2 generations, the landowners in the West Feeder Basin and the L28 Gap are all unified once again. By involving all of our family's lands, you've brought us all together, and you've unintentionally set me down a path which I really think I can make a real difference on. I really am grateful. It's a far better outlook than being content on my land in isolation. But governing board, let's make that real difference together. Ride in that side by side with us, or canoe if that's your preference. Let's work to expedite the Feeder Canal Basin Water Quality Program through transparency and openness with the public so we can ensure critical endangered species lands are not flooded out while we achieve true restoration. It can be done. All it will take is what I've spent years asking for, bringing everyone to the table. We do that with the land steward meetings, and thank you, Mr. Butler, for your comments today. I greatly appreciate them. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. Next, we'll hear from Mark Perry, followed by Mitchell Latzman.
I just want to say something about this young man. His family's been out there over 100 years, and he's the next generation. And I handed all of you his detailed reports going back 100 years ago. And I'm so proud of him. He's actually loves the land, loves the environment, loves the wildlife. And at the end of the day, his research, his working with our staff will end up truly restoring that area. The most important thing about Everglades restoration is that we we don't flood areas, we don't drain areas, we have compatible water levels with the wildlife and the plant communities, and recognizing the history of the Big Cypress as a rain-driven pocketed system. I know y'all have probably seen his research. I'm very, very proud of Ben. Very proud of my daughter, that's the next generation as well, that has worked with him quite a bit. And at the end of the day, we're truly going to be restoring, because the important thing is that we take into consideration the tribal lands, the public lands, and the private Everglades lands. It's all one global system. And just want to say I'm very proud of Ben. Thank you.
Next, we'll hear from Mark Perry.
Thank you, Governing Board. Yes, I wish I could be invited to that gathering around the lake. That'd be amazing stories, just like we heard from Mr. Olson. I think those are really great. I learned so much. Yeah, June is, as we announced earlier by Drew, the Flood Control Awareness Month. But June is also Oceans Month, World Ocean Month. And all around, we're talking about our connection to the ocean. We have, as you know, about 1,200 miles of coastline from the Atlantic and Gulf, as this peninsula is, but there's over 8,000 miles of tidal shorelines, all in and out of our bays and estuaries and rivers. And you know what we're doing in our efforts to manage, and back in the turn of the century, 120 plus years ago, we were starting to drain the Everglades. We wanted to just drain this land off and just try to get rid of all the water we could. And we still kind of do that in a way in trying to manage the water better now, but we're still draining. About 1.7 billion gallons a day of the water goes out these canals into the Atlantic or Gulf. It's a terrible waste of our freshwater system that needs to be on through the Everglades. It also brings all the runoff and basin pollution out into our coastal ecosystems, like our rivers, our bays, our estuaries, our lagoons, and the nearshore reef environments. But I do want to celebrate the fact that we're doing better to try to manage that water system, to try to store that water on our side, to try to be better at the pollution runoff that's coming out, and be able to try to protect these coastal ecosystems. I can't tell you enough how we look at all the surveys on the reefs and the reef environments, and we're doing whatever we can to try to understand the coastal ecosystems, trying to restore them, along with restoring the Everglades and all the ecosystems inland. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. Next, we'll hear from Mitchell Latzman, followed by Drew Martin.
Good afternoon now, governing board members. I just want to apologize ahead of time if I'm standing in the way of lunch, but I'll try to keep it brief. So I just wanted to comment a little bit on the earlier conversation about the Kissimmee River, Lake Okeechobee, north of the lake. So our organization, Friends of the Everglades, was founded by Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, who advocated heavily for the Kissimmee restoration, which part of which was done and done very well. But we have to understand that this is, as Ron Bergeron says, a global system. And so there's benefits and drawbacks to what we do in each area. North of the lake is really important for managing the water quality in the lake, the rate of the inflows into the lake, and also helps reduce estuary discharges. But it doesn't do anything to restore the flow to the Everglades, which is the river of grass. And so we know that the sources of pollution are there now, whatever they might be, north of the lake, around the lake, south of the lake. As we see it, they're not going anywhere. We're trying our best to manage them. We're trying our best to clean it up, but we can't wait on the lake to be completely fixed and restored, and for the amount of storage needed north of the lake to be completed to see those benefits to then do southern storage and treatment. Because in the meantime, our estuaries are taking huge hits, and the lake itself, if you want to manage the lake well and keep it low and keep it healthy, the only way to do that is to be able to move that water out of the lake. If you see tons of water filling up in the lake from a hurricane or whatever it might be, you're only able to move X amount of water. We only have 248,000 acre feet of water once the EA reservoir is there. That's only like a quarter of a foot off the lake or so, about, very roughly. So we need about 1 million acre feet more. So we need about more than 2.5 feet of water coming off the lake, being able to come off the lake into these reservoirs. And I don't know, like, it's not like that amount is just kind of off the top of my head, but the point is that if we really want to restore the system, we have to think about it as one joined and flowing system. And focusing on one area and excluding another is not how we are going to do it. And so I just wanted to bring that to your attention that, you know, just because we're doing northern storage doesn't mean we shouldn't do southern, because both are extremely important and necessary to restore this entire system. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lotzman. Next, we'll hear from Drew Martin, followed by Nyla Pipes.
Drew Martin on behalf of the Sierra Club. I just want to thank, first of all, the staff and the governing board for all the great work you're doing. And we really appreciate the work on the Kissimmee River. I also was really heartened to hear the report from the gentleman who has the ranch, working ranch, and about the Panthers on the property. And I think that's the kind of partnership we really want to see. Really happy with that, and happy to see the Panthers are, you know, successfully breeding in that area. We're concerned about the future of the EAA as we see potential development around agriculture areas, and we are concerned with rock mining. We think as, you know, lands become less productive, they, rather than being turned into rock mines or other type of developments, they should be adopted through conservation easements to provide sheet flow and shallow storage. One of the concerns with rock mines is they dewater the areas around them as they become deeper, and they also destroy the vegetation and the topsoil, leaving nothing there for the future environment. We appreciate the work that the district has done with the dry conditions to help enhance some of the wading birds so that they can still successfully breed. I think the work you're doing is great, and it's really, you know, impressive. I'm glad to see that you haven't been able to get water moved around some, so you could help rewater some of those areas that were really dry. And, you know, that's good, because I know that you want to maintain the health of the vegetation. I hope we don't have a major water event, because, you know, we do need to add some water to the lake, but at the same time, the estuaries, particularly the St. Lucie area, do not need additional water. And right now, the seagrasses have actually come back pretty well. And so that's something that we should be heartened. I was glad to hear about the oysters. I think it's really important to maintain those conditions. And I'm afraid that a large event where we start dumping a huge amount of water could ruin a lot of that progress. But overall, I think the district's doing a great job, and I want to thank you for all you do.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Next, we'll hear from Nyla Pipes, followed
We
by...
want to thank you too, Mr. Martin. You've been so dedicated to all of this, and thank you for all your service.
Ms. Pipes, please unmute.
Sound check.
We hear you.
All right. So to continue on the conversation about fire in the Everglades, I want to talk about last month's Max Road fire, which burned over 11,000 acres and almost took out Max Fish Camp and Everglades Holiday Park. I want to talk about it in a positive way, though. You know, it's a good thing we saved both of those airboat camps, and that heritage is still alive, and I'm very, very happy to see that. But I want to talk about how that fire highlights the importance of fire in the Everglades for the native vegetation. And the reason I want to talk about it is because right now, at this moment, you have an opportunity to have such easy access to see that with your own eyes. All you have to do is drive down the levee towards Max Fish Camp. You don't even have to get out of your vehicle. because on one side of the levee, you've got the canal, and on the other side of the levee, you've got the fire. And you've got, more importantly, the recovery from the fire. And it is absolutely stunning and remarkable. So I wanted to make sure you all knew that that was a really easy way for anybody who's listening to get out and see an important part of this conversation, an important part of the Everglades. Now, that being said, while you're out there, I do encourage you to get out of your vehicle, because if Marshall Jones is around, you won't talk to a more educated Gladesman, except for maybe, Ronnie Bergeron. But yeah, so right now, go see it, because it's something that is not always easily seen by the general public and by people who have busy schedules. But right now you can see how important Everglades fires are, as long as they don't become muck fires. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pipes. Next, we'll hear from Thomas Oates, followed by David Gillis.
All right. Hello, everybody, and Buenos Aires from Sicily. I'm out of town, but this is important. As a reminder, I'm a Looneyville property owner. Looneyville is a neighborhood of 24 private residences in the WRP footprint. It's located in the Northeast Addition unit of Big Cypress. We continue to be concerned about the effects of WRP on our area and that of our neighbors, extending outside the preserve's boundaries. I've been encouraged recently by the district's efforts to involve all stakeholders in the WRP footprint to continue to meet and dialogue in a respectful manner about the concerns for our residences and the health and well-being of the preserve as a whole. I look forward to continuing to be involved, and my hope is that I would be invited to have a seat at that table and participate in those discussions. So thank you very much to the commissioners. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Oates. Next, we'll hear from David Gillis, followed by Jeff Dixon.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm also like to echo Tom's. As a neighbor of mine, I'm a shareholder in Looneyville. Actually, Roy Looney was my grandfather, and I'm looking forward to being involved and involving all the stakeholders in that area in the WRP project and come to a mutual and beneficial project or conclusion for everybody and make this thing work out properly. But thank you for your time.
Thank you. Well, next we'll hear from Jeff Dixon.
Hello there. I hope all you guys and girls are doing great. And I just wanted to let you guys know that things are going well in the Western Weir. We're a little drier than we would like to be, but thank God we've got some good rain in the last month, and everything's really greening up nice. The other reason for my call was Mr. Olson, once again, leading the charge, has been able to talk to the tribes and you guys, and I just want to let everyone know that me and the rest of the landowners are very excited about sitting down with everyone, including the tribe or tribes at the table, and I think we have so much in common that this thing is going to go very well. And I just wanted to state that and tell you all to have a fantastic day and keep up the great work. You guys are really moving this thing in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dixon. Mr. Chairman, we have no additional general public comment.
Great, thank you all very much for your comments. We'll move now to final board comment. Mr. Bergeron.
I always have a comment, It's just been a great journey with all of us here, and I'm so excited. I see a light at the end of the tunnel, and I don't think it's a train. I hope not. But no, I'm so excited because we're getting to a point in Everglades restoration that we're going to be getting benefits from projects we started 25 years ago. And I know I talk a lot about the Tamiami Trail, and I don't want any of the stakeholders or my fellow board members to think I'm partiality to the southern part of the system. But that, when we complete the Tamiami Trail, and we, for the first time since 1915, that 2.5 to 3 million acre feet will benefit the whole global system, from Boggy Creek in Orlando to the Kissimmee River floodplains to the lake, the Heart, the Caloosahatchee, the St. Lucie, the Indian River Lagoon, the Central Everglades, the Big Cypress, Fakahatchee, Picayune, Panther Refuge, Everglades National Park. That 2.5 to 3 million acre feet will not have a cumulative backup. It will equalize and stop seagrass from dying in Florida Bay. It won't be going out our rivers in quantities greater than natural. That's going to be the biggest benefit we've seen over, as we've built all these projects for 25 years. And that, you know, Florida has 54 to 60 inches of rain a year. And it's got to go somewhere. And for the first time in 100 years, at least 3 million acre feet in a heavy rain year will be going to benefit Florida Bay. It won't have a cumulative backup. It won't be drowned in wildlife in the Central Everglades. It won't be going out our rivers. It'll be going in the right direction. And I just can't tell you how excited I am. And I know Drew has a meeting next week. We've been having these meetings, every month or two, Drew. And we have 4 federal partners on this every 2 months, and 4 state partners, to making sure that everybody's doing what's necessary, because that road's going to be done in August or September of this year. Nobody can point at the road no more. Okay? So I'm looking forward to continue to work with the Department of Interior, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and the Park Service, and the U.S. Corps, and South Florida Water Management, DEP, and FWC, and DOT. And I don't know whether we've had any correspondence with the Deputy Secretary in regards to that one permit that we need, Drew?
I have had conversations. I'll catch up with you.
Okay. So we're working hard, and because all I have heard for sitting up here 8 years is move water south, and we're just about getting ready to move water south. So, and we also have the plans. I think you have said, Drew, that west of the L-28 across the Tamiami Trail, Loop Road, we should be able to be awarding those contracts in December?
This calendar year, it might be earlier, so
Yeah.
let me look.
And that with the last piece of the Blue Shanty, there'll be no restrictions. And so we'll keep everyone updated as we proceed on this. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Bergeron. Colonel Roman?
Mr. Bergeron, you know, we've been working on moving water south, but also removing those obstacles and barriers. So it sounds like that's a huge one coming up in August, which will say check. We're just done. Yep, that's great. Nothing further.
Mr. Butler?
Just echo on that. Mr. Bergeron, thank you for your leadership there. Leadership, pushing, keeping everybody together. It's pretty good. I appreciate that. And, you know, same goes for the rest of my board members, especially the ones sitting up here. No, rest of them. Everybody else too. Charlie, yes, I love you. But no, I appreciate everybody. It's amazing to come to these meetings and hear what everybody's been working on, and behind the scenes. You know, Government of Sunshine. This is where we get our report, and it's cool to hear what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Butler. Mr. Hurley?
I don't have anything.
Great. Have a good month. Mr. Martinez? Mr. Spotswood?
Nothing for me, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. You have a good month also. I have nothing further. Our next meeting is Thursday, July 9th, which is 5 days after this great nation's 250th birthday. So look forward to seeing you all back here on July 9th, and we're adjourned.